Chapter 821. Old Taoist Sure returned to his own room and searched for a long time before he finally found the magic item that he treasured as much as his life. Wang Chun took in his hand and looked at it. It was a palm-sized bronze bell. On the outside of the bronze bell, there were carvings of dragons and tigers, mythological beasts that could suppress evil spirits. Wang Chun tossed the bronze bell in his hand and felt that it was a little heavy in his hand. It seemed that it was not just made of bronze. Looking at the inside of the bell, there were mysterious patterns of varying lengths engraved with silver thread as the core and lead thread wrapped around it. These patterns were interconnected and outlined, forming a very complex integrated pattern. This is a ritual implement. Wang Chun found it hard to believe. Sure Gong explained, "Young patriarch, this corpse-chasing bell is the only ritual implement I have." The corpse-chasing bell was originally a ritual implement used by the outer sect disciples of Lower Mao Mountain to drive corpses away. Combined with the incantation, even the weakest disciples could drive the corpses away day and night, traveling hundreds of miles to provide materials for refining the corpses of Lower Mao Mountain. It is a ritual implement that every disciple of Lower Mao Mountain has. This ritual implement is widely spread, and it is not unique to Lower Mao Mountain. Although I have lost my senses, with the power of this ritual implement, I can still drive the corpses away a little. Old Taoist Sure Gong said as he pushed open the lid of a coffin. He lifted up a corpse that had been concocted with a secret medicine and ordered his young disciple to bring a few extremely tough bamboo poles. Sure Gong bent the bamboo poles into the shape of a bow and tied them to the corpse's spine, forming a bow-shaped frame to support the corpse. After he was done, there was a bamboo pole behind the corpse to support it. The corpse's legs formed a triangular frame, and the corpse's hands were stretched out flat and tied with the bamboo poles. When everything was ready, there was a spring-like frame behind the corpse. Sure Gong picked up the corpse-chasing bell and began the ritual. He closed his eyes and shook the bell in his right hand, causing the bell to make all kinds of loud and short noises. These noises were unusually messy and rarely the same. When the bell made a short, rapid ringing sound, the corpse suddenly twitched all over. Driven by its limbs, the bamboo pole bent downward, and when it returned to its original position, the corpse bounced up. It looked as if the corpse had jumped. Wang Chun was startled by the commotion. He looked at Sure Gong, who seemed to have found a key. He kept trying to adjust the frequency of the bell that made the zombies react. At this time, Wang Chun finally saw it. It seemed like the corpse-chasing bell had a special reaction to a certain frequency and timbre. Whenever the bell sounded close to that frequency, its limbs would twitch. At this time, the corpses had been forced to jump around in the courtyard by the constant adjustment of the bell from the division master's palace. Wang Chun had already figured out the trick. It turned out that Sure Gong was constantly adjusting the tone of the bell to find a frequency that would work on the Walking Dead. Then he would try to adjust the frequency and tone around this frequency to test the reaction of the Walking Dead. Then he could shake the bell to control the direction of the Walking Dead, the frequency and the size of their steps, and drive them to walk freely. Is this what it means to drive corpses? Wang Chun said in surprise. The different sounds of the bells control different walking corpses. That kind of bell can only control one dead body, and the corpse drivers can transport dozens or even hundreds of walking corpses at a time. Does it mean that they also control the walking corpses one by one with the bell? Sure Gong stopped the bell and said shamefully, "It didn't need to be like this before. As long as I practiced a corpse-controlling spell, I could unify the sounds of the corpses and control all the corpses with only one sound. Now, it's only because this spell has been lost that I have to do this. Many of your spells have been lost. No, I should say except for a few basic things, almost all the things related to magic power have been lost." Wang Chun sighed. And this corpse driving doesn't look like driving the corpses, but uses the elasticity of the bamboo pole to hypothesize a delicate mechanical structure, which makes the twitching of the corpses into a forward elastic force. And the method to make the corpses twitch is the stimulation of the bell. Wang Chun frowned. I've heard of the frog jumping reaction. After the lower body of a frog is cut off, the wire of the current is connected to the frog's nerves. After the electricity is applied, the legs of the dead frog will bounce. This is a small experiment to explain the nerve reflex and bioelectricity. This corpse driving. Why does it look like the bioelectricity that stimulates the corpses? Wang Qin picked up the corpse driving bell and looked at the suspicious lines on the inner wall of the bell, his eyes more doubtful. Although the feeling of this law is a little different, the essence is the same as that of integrated circuits. This is an integrated circuit that uses different standards and even has a slightly different development direction. If we analyze it from a scientific point of view, the corpse driving bell stimulates the residual bioelectricity in the corpses through sound waves. No, it should be electromagnetic waves, which stimulates the corpses to produce a stress response. Through the external mechanical structure, the kinetic energy of the corpse's twitching is transformed into elastic potential energy and then into the kinetic energy of the bounce. This is the secret of the corpse driving bell. And the electromagnetic waves of the corpse driving bell are generated by the changes in the electric current and magnetic field caused by the vibration. The timbre and audio frequency are actually a symbol of the frequency of the electromagnetic waves. Through the sound waves that people can hear, it translates the information of the changes in the electromagnetic waves. This magic instrument made by the cultivators of the Ming Dynasty, is it also a technological product, like the Zhun Song of the ancient magic treasure I have? Or is the essence of this magic instrument, the corpse driving bell, a long-range bioelectricity stimulator that is controlled by the vibration? Wang Chan was already convinced by his reasonable and scientific deduction, but he still had a question. Then, where did Duke Jiao, a man of the Ming Dynasty, learn the technology of stimulating the bioelectricity and electromagnetic wave emission of corpses? Wang Chun couldn't help but look at his Zhun Song, this magic instrument. Wang Chun sighed with emotion. Maybe I already have some ideas. Shi Gong was overjoyed. He had repeatedly demonstrated the secret arts of Mao Mountain to Wang Chun. But unfortunately, the owner of the ancestral iron coffin, the fundamental treasure of Mao Mountain, had no clue about the Taoist arts that Grandmaster Jiao had comprehended from the wondrous coffin. Even Wang Chun was a little nervous. He knew that the only reason Shi Gong and his disciples worshipped him as their grandmaster was to revitalize Mao Mountain. If he continued to be incompetent, Shi Gong would turn against him sooner or later. Although Wang Chun, who had a gun in his chest, was not afraid of this half-baked Taoist priest, he still felt a little heartache when he saw the first force he encountered after coming to this world rebelling, which was not easy to subdue. Chapter 822. Wang Chun had planned to let the zombie lie in the chamber first, so that he could use the data from the life monitoring program inside to find out the electromagnetic wave frequency and effect principle that triggered the bioelectric reaction of the zombie. But when he returned to the chamber, he realized that the life scanning program did not necessarily require the zombie to lie in the chamber. In fact, the monitoring of the neurobioelectricity data, whether it was the quantum bistable scanning radar or the collection nanobots in the chamber, could be easily obtained. Wang Chun pushed the zombie to the front of the silo and climbed in to operate it. Shi Gong and his disciples saw a tiny red ray shoot out from an external port of the silo and scan the zombie. Wang Chun, who was in the silo, saw a realistic projection of human data appear on a glass screen. Fortunately, the chamber was different from the cutting-edge medical equipment in Wang Chen's previous world. There were no English abbreviations and special terms. This was a pure and clean operating system in Chinese. The occasional English letters did not hinder Wang Chen's understanding at all. After searching for a long time in the data page, Wang Chun finally found the page that represented neurobioelectricity. Thanks to the idiot-like operation of the high-tech products, thanks to the operating system in Chinese with explanations, thanks to the humanized design of the chamber, Wang Chun finally tried the idiot-like scientific research. As a graduate student of the Chinese department, he might not be good at other scientific research compared to his peers in science and engineering, but his comprehension ability was completely qualified. He first determined the stress band of the zombie's bioelectricity to electromagnetic waves, then pulled up the relevant information about human bioelectricity and electromagnetic wave research inside the chamber. He determined an electromagnetic wave model that came with the chamber. This electromagnetic wave model was highly permeable to the human body, and it was the massage function of the chamber. Among more than 10,000 models, this was the scientific information about the electromagnetic wave adjustment massage function. There were precedents of electromagnetic wave massage. When Wang Chun was a child, there were popular health electromagnetic wave pillows, magnetic blankets, and electromagnetic wave therapy devices that could emit electromagnetic waves to warm up the place where the massage head came in contact with. There were all kinds of civilian scientists who had successfully invented them, and all kinds of healthcare products associations recommended them. Even more recently, there were still people who would occasionally shout electromagnetic health research by the National Academy of Sciences on TV shopping channels. Finally, he used the quantum computer in the warehouse to build a complete set of electromagnetic wave interference bioelectric model. Wang Chun followed the instruction manual and used the small 5D printer that came with the warehouse. This was specially provided for the people in the warehouse to make simple tools on a relatively primitive and desolate planet. There was no doubt that the Great Ming Dynasty was such a primitive and desolate planet. The Earth before Wang Chun's time travel could also be counted as such. It seemed that in the eyes of the manufacturer of Haigang, a planet civilization that could not smash a small cold fusion device with a hammer was not a normal planet. With Wang Chun's rudimentary knowledge of electricity, even with a 5D printer, it was already very difficult for him to print an electromagnetic wave emitting device. At this moment, Wang Chun deeply felt his lack of knowledge and IQ. The final product was a small silver handle that looked like a flashlight. It had a switch that looked like a flashlight and a transmitter that looked like a flashlight cover. It was for the convenience of an upright ape in the pre-information age to use it the way he was most familiar with, the idiot style. After a busy night, Wang Chun finally made a magic weapon that imitated the corpse-chasing bell. He briefly demonstrated it to Shi Gong. Wang Chun shone the flashlight on a few corpses for a moment. In this world, the flashlight resonated with the stress magnetic field of their bioelectricity. Then, Shi Gong's headache of controlling only one corpse with one bell was solved. The switch of the flashlight could adjust the color of the light. When the light turned red, the corpses would stop. When the light turned green, they would go. As long as they followed the light, they could change the walking frequency and movement of the corpses. The electromagnetic waves that could cause the bioelectricity stress reaction were all controlled within the range of the green light. The darker the color, the greater the intensity, the more violent the reaction of the corpses. However, it would seriously damage the nervous system of the corpses, so the frequency should be maintained at the best medium. Finally, there was some progress in restoring the Taoist inheritance of Maoshan Mountain. But there was no time to wait. When Wang Chun finished his demonstration, the east had already turned bright. Although the old Taoist Shi Gong was excited, at this moment he finally remembered the trouble that would hasten his life. He said to Wang Chun, "Young patriarch, although it is worth congratulating us for restoring the corpse-chasing secret left by Patriarch Jiao, I'm afraid the people of Shangqing Palace have already known some of our origins because my disciple accidentally leaked it. Shangqing Palace covets the treasure left behind by our patriarch. They will certainly not let us go. Now that the person supporting them hasn't arrived yet, let's bury your coffin first. We'll lie low for a while. When the people of Shangqing Palace return empty-handed, we'll find a chance to take back the magic weapon." Wang Chun frowned and said, "You've told me so many marvelous Taoist methods and magic arts. If we bury the iron coffin, don't tell me those powerful people in Shangqing Palace have no way to find it?" Shi Gong hesitated and said, "Although the people of Shangqing Palace can guess some of our origins, they don't know that my disciple leaked the treasure left behind by our patriarch. Few people in Lower Maoshan know that the treasure left behind by our patriarch is a coffin. They found out that we have the magic weapon left behind by our patriarch. But Lower Maoshan was so glorious in those days that it must have had a lot of treasures. I'm afraid the Shangqing Palace won't go through so much trouble for it. As long as we're careful, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with it. This is only one of the possibilities. If there are no ifs, and the Shangqing Palace sends powerful people to search the memorial hall, how effective can the little tricks we left behind be? At that time, if the treasure left behind by our patriarch is lost, who can bear the responsibility? And the iron coffin is mine. I'll never give it up. As far as Wang Chun was concerned, the Black Granary might be hiding the secret of his time travel and even his return home. In the Black Granary, there were few things that could hurt him. With this escape route, Wang Chun would never risk losing the Black Granary and avoid a head-on conflict with the Shangqing Palace. Shigong's expression changed several times. Obviously, he was very conflicted. Looking at Wang Chun's determined expression, he had to bow his head and say, "As you wish, young patriarch. Anyway, if I can't defeat the Taoist priests of the Shangqing Palace, I'll go to the warehouse and sleep for 100 years. With this idea in mind, Wang Chun said resolutely, "We can't avoid the people from the Shangqing Palace, nor can we escape. The only thing we can do now is to kill them all. With lightning speed, kill the people from the Shangqing Palace to buy time for us to move the ancient magic weapon." Chapter 823. Hearing this, the old Taoist Shigong pondered for a long time. Fear flashed across his face for a while, and then ferociously, as if he had fallen into an inner demon. His memory seemed to have returned to that night 19 years ago, when his little disciple looked confused and didn't seem to understand what Wang Chun meant. Wang Chun just looked on coldly, but in a place where the master and disciple couldn't see, his hand holding the gun was soaked with cold sweat. As soon as Shigong said no, he would pull out the gun and shoot the two of them here. Then he would find a way to hide Gui Song, lie in it, and sleep until the 21st century. Because Wang Chun had calculated in his mind that if Shigong refused to risk his life, the possibility of success of this plan would be pitifully small. As for the other way out, abandoning Hate Song and relying on his identity as the young grandmaster of Maoshan Mountain to roam the world, Wang Chun had long given up on this idea. Once Wang Chun made up his mind and made a choice, he would never allow himself to hesitate. When the opportunity arose, he could not make up his mind. Therefore, since he had rejected this option after careful consideration, he would no longer consider it. Therefore, he could either unite with Shigong and the others and kill the people of Shangqing Palace when they came, or kill Shigong and his disciple and escape into the escape capsule. Since the escape capsule had been in the hands of Master Jiu of Maoshan Mountain for so many years, it might be possible to continue to wait for an opportunity in Shangqing Palace. Sometimes, one's path was not chosen by oneself, but whether one could do the best or not depended on one's own ability. This was the situation for Wang Chun at this time. Shigong's attitude determined whether he would take the risk or retreat. But whether it was the former or the latter, he must be fully prepared. If he wanted to take a risk and kill the enemy, he had to first create an internal cause. By eliminating internal contradictions, he could solve external contradictions. This was what Wang Chun learned from the Maja theory in college. For some reason, these memories were especially clear at this critical moment. Wang Chun vaguely remembered that in the early struggle history of a party, a leader had put forward a series of tactical ideas. It mentioned that most of the contradictions in the world were composed of internal and external causes. Generally, they could be eliminated by solving the internal cause. The way to solve the internal cause was to continuously clarify and refine the cause of the problem and the various steps to solve the problem. If a problem needed 100 steps to be solved, then one step at a time, the problem would be solved. From a philosophical point of view, this method was to start from the actual object, to explore the internal relations of things and the regularity of their development, and to understand the essence of things. Simply put, it was to seek truth from facts. If Division Commander Gong wavered and could not make up his mind to fight to the death, then Wang Chun would have a fatal weakness in terms of intelligence, organization, and execution. As long as Division Commander Gong hesitated at a critical moment, he would be dragged into a bottomless abyss. The foundation for the execution of the entire plan would no longer exist. Even if the chief palace was determined, he still had to carefully and conscientiously collect information, formulate a plan, and carry it out step by step. In this way, even if things developed into the worst situation, Wang Chun could still escape unscathed. If the division commander's palace wavered, in that case, Wang Chun also had a job to do: erase all intelligence and information about himself. To ensure the greatest degree of his safety in the Black Barn, it was best not to let the people of Shangqing Palace know the truth, especially the fact that he had been awakened. In that case, Shangqing Palace, who had learned the key information, was likely to spend a great deal to find a way to get Wang Chun out of the Black Barn. Although it was very likely that they would be doing something useless, Wang Chun could not give them this reason to bear such a risk. In that case, Division Commander Gong and his disciple must die. Wang Chun carefully observed Division Commander Gong's every move, coldly calculating the possibility and plan of his sudden attack to kill the master and his disciple. He silently thought about the route to dodge and retreat and analyzed Division Commander Gong psychologically and physiologically. Old Taoist Shi Gong could not imagine how harmless he was. At least, he did not show much lethality. The mysterious immortal from the upper realm, the young patriarch of Mao Mountain whom he had just worshipped, was coldly thinking about how to kill him. In fact, Wang Chun had considered all the things that he had never thought about. In particular, he had used his identity to establish a psychological blind spot for old Taoist Shi Gong, causing him to die even more unprepared. Shi Gong had fallen into a nightmare. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat. Apparently, what happened 19 years ago was still haunting him like a nightmare. His eyes turned white and his body trembled. Suddenly, he screamed, which made Wang Chun almost pull out his gun. But what he shouted was, "Kill them!" With tears in his eyes, Division Commander Gong kowtowed and said, "Since the young master wants to kill the people of Shangqing Palace, Division Commander Gong will do it. As long as the incense of Lower Maoshan still exists, it doesn't matter even if I die. I should have died 19 years ago. Now I live like a ghost every day. It doesn't matter if I die. I have long wanted to run away. It's just that the inheritance of Lower Maoshan is more important than my life. That's why I've dragged out an ignoble existence until today. Now, the inheritance of Lower Maoshan is gone. The hope of reviving it is like a candle in the wind. Even if I run again, how many times can I escape? I still have the magic scrolls of my senior brothers and martial uncles, which have the power of Lower Maoshan. But my disciple only has the magic scrolls that I barely imparted to him. His magic power is mixed, and he can't even master the few remaining spells. Today, I lost the magic treasure of the founder. Tomorrow, I'll lose a few more spells. In a few years, when I die, Lower Maoshan will be gone. Just like that. Today, the young master has the hope of reviving it. I'll give my life to accompany him. That's good. Wang Chun loosened the grip of the gun in his hand. His finger on the trigger did not move, but only made a virtual pull. He looked into Division Commander Gong's eyes and asked in a deep voice, "Since you're so determined, do you dare to make an oath in front of me to Master Gong Jiu?" Without hesitation, Division Commander Gong pointed to the sky and swore, "Master Gong Jiu, Disciple Division Commander Gong, today, for the inheritance of Lower Maoshan, I, Division Commander Gong, will fight to the death with Shangqing Palace. If I die, my soul will ascend to heaven and follow the founder into the netherworld. Although I have no words to say, I will show my loyalty and not make Lower Maoshan lose face. Even if I'm lucky to survive, I'll fight with my broken body to show the orthodoxy of Lower Maoshan to the world. May the founder bless me. If I break this oath, I'll never be reincarnated." "You're indeed a loyal man," Wang Chun praised. At this time, he knew it was time to make a promise to Division Commander Gong. "Heaven above, I, Wang Chun, swear today that I'll do my best to make Lower Maoshan prosper in the world. If I break this oath, let me die in the alley, and my soul will never be able to return." Wang Chun swore. He and Division Commander Gong looked at each other. Nothing needed to be said. After eliminating the biggest conflict between the two of them of mutual distrust, Wang Chun decided to solve the remaining internal factors one by one. First, he said to Division Commander Gong, "That disciple of yours didn't keep his mouth shut, which led to Lower Maoshan's disaster. I know you and he depend on each other for survival and have deep feelings for each other. But his temperament is unstable, so he can't be entrusted with great responsibilities. In the future, when he inherits the orthodoxy, he'll have to go through all kinds of tests. Now that the great event is at hand, you need to keep an eye on him and not entrust him with any important tasks." Division Commander Gong kowtowed and promised. Wang Chun continued to instruct, "You've been running this place for more than 10 years, so you must have some connections and people you can trust. You must also have some understanding of the enemy, Shanqing Palace, which is nearby. Tell me clearly about the manpower and intelligence. How to set up the guard, find out the news of the people from Shanqing Palace, and grasp their movements. I'll arrange them one by one. I don't know much about the magic arts of Taoism, so you need to do as much as you know. Moreover, before the troops and horses move, the provisions and fodder must be prepared. Whether it's a big battle between two armies or a small battle like ours, logistical supplies must be collected and prepared. The silver you've saved for more than 10 years is our biggest reliance this time. You should know that in this world, silver is more powerful than magic power when used well. So, whether it's cheating, burning, killing, or looting, you have to gather all the silver I want." Division Commander Gong had never seen Wang Chun act so neat and tidy. Inexplicably, he suddenly had confidence in this immortal who had always been unreliable. At least at this time, Wang Chun's performance was reliable and firm, which greatly eliminated Division Commander Gong's worries. He replied, "I've been running this place for dozens of years, so I can take out 1,859 taels of silver. If it's not enough, there are a few other big families nearby, and I also know them very well. When the time comes, I can kill their whole families. Even tens of thousands of taels of silver will not be a problem." At this time, Division Commander Gong showed a fierce look, showing some of the ruthlessness and determination of the Taoist priests of Maoshan Mountain. Wang Chun raised his eyebrows, a little not used to such a decisive killing. But he was also a person who had experienced the end of the world. This conflict with a worldview determined by the influence of public opinion and education in the past 25 years, he just raised his eyebrows and let it go. He even deliberately made himself more cruel and selfish. He just said calmly, "In front of the enemy, if it's not necessary, there's no need to make more twists and turns. We don't have much time left." Division Commander Gong nodded and said yes. But the key to the art of war lies in intelligence. The second is the ability to execute. And the third is the degree of preparation. Division Commander Gong, find me all the people you can control, according to their degree of trust. Let them watch all the roads leading to this place. Once there is news of people from Shanqing Palace coming, send various signals. The importance of intelligence depends on the enemy and us. Our advantage is that people from Shanqing Palace come from other places, so they don't know your background and have no ears and eyes here. But if we let them meet with the local residents of Shanqing Palace, they will have a channel of ears and eyes, which will be very difficult to deal with. Moreover, we know nothing about how many people from Shanqing Palace are coming, what realm they are at, and how many magic they know. This is a big taboo in the military. If we want to get these two forces, the first is to eradicate the residents of Shanqing Palace. One is to interrogate them for information, and the other is to cut off their ears and eyes. Chapter 824. The abbot of Shanqing Palace's side courtyard is surnamed Jiang, and people call him Taoist priest Jiang. Like me, he's also a Taoist disciple and Taoist priest who has been enlightened. Shanqing Palace doesn't have many spells, and most of them were imparted by Patriarch Duke Jiao. Perhaps 19 years ago, he received some secret teachings from our lower Mao Mountain. But the Shanqing Palace is a righteous sect. Of the few true arts that we have secretly passed down from Mount Mao, poison, venom, corpse, curse, and talisman, I reckon that they only dare to collect talismans. However, They were already proficient in the most powerful of the Taoist techniques of the Taoist priest realm, the thunder arts, before they plundered us from Mount Mao's true teachings. Taoist Jiang and I have been neighbors for more than 10 years. According to my investigation, he only knows a few talisman spells and swordsmanship, but I have never heard that he is proficient in thunder magic. The side yard of Shangqing Palace on Mount Phoenix is a small Taoist temple with a total of 3 Taoist priests. In addition to Taoist Jiang, there are 2 Taoist priests who receive Taoist scripts. They only practice some martial arts and know a few exorcism talismans. They are people who follow the Taoist rituals and etiquette, so there's nothing to worry about. In addition, they also keep 8 thugs called Taoist soldiers and outer disciples. They practice martial arts and have a rough understanding of swords, weapons, fists, and feet. Wang Chun asked Shigong to write down everything he knew in detail, and he even drew a map of the Taoist temple on Phoenix Mountain to study. He found that the most difficult thing was not to kill Taoist Jiang, but to keep it a secret. It was extremely difficult for the 2 of them to capture all the Taoists in the side yard of Shangqing Palace. Perhaps only when the whole Phoenix Mountain was locked down by the army could they have a 100% chance of success. But what Wang Chun lacked the most was people. Shigong could fool those stupid men and women to get some information and monitor the road. But if he wanted to take them to kill people, they were not enough. He raised his question. Shigong pondered for a moment and suddenly raised his head. Every morning and evening, especially the morning class, all the members of Taoist Temple have to go to the main hall to chant scriptures and listen to the master's lecture. Then we'll catch them all at once. Wang Chun made the decision. As for the defense, the Taoist Temple was not a military camp, so the Taoist priests of the Shangqing Palace would never expect that the remnants of Mao Mountain would dare to come to the temple like the Division Commander Palace, so the defense was certainly inadequate. This was also where Wang Chun's advantage lay. As long as the preparations were perfect, he believed that it would not be difficult. After a moment of contemplation, Wang Chun asked again, "The external disciples of the Shangqing Palace are skilled in martial arts. Getting rid of them is like cutting off one of Taoist Zhang's arms. Do you have any good ideas?" Shigong pondered for a moment before replying. "We can use lightning techniques." He knew that Wang Chun did not know Taoist magic, so he explained in detail the ancient necromancers could make the sound of thunder when they made elixirs. After the Taoist magic manifested, they used elixirs as the foundation and refined it with magic power. When the gunpowder turned into thunder, it was called fire thunder. The fire thunder was the lightning technique, which was very convenient to eliminate evil and protect the Taoist doctrine. Taoist priests could even kill Taoists with lightning techniques. The imperial court used gunpowder as the army and appointed Taoist officers to control it. In the past, when Xiaobai rebelled, Li Rusong put down the rebellion in 3 months with 300 soldiers of the mighty army with guns and fire thunder. When Neon invaded Korea, it was Li Rusong, Ma Guei, and the others who used Pingbo, Zhenin, Yushu, Shunxiao, Dadong, Xindu, Polaris, Tai, and other divine thunders to obliterate hundreds of miles in the sea battle. Countless Neon battleships were sunk, which made Neon terrified. The king of Neon sent a letter to the head of his general, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, asking for his surrender. Wang Chun felt a little dizzy. Putting aside the miraculous changes of the Taoist priests becoming firearms experts and the Taoist temples turning into arms dealers, he could ask about what these Taoist priests and Jinren had done to the little girl in history later. The most important thing now was that these Taoist priests and Jinren had imitated the god race in the Ming dynasty. Bang! Bang! What level did the Taoist priests upgrade the gunpowder? And what was the role of the magic power? Wang Chun felt so confused that he had to start from the beginning. "Do you know Thunder Method?" Shigong said respectfully, "I know a little. Thunder Method is forbidden by the imperial court. Among the 5 elements of thunder, Maoshan specializes in Gui water, heavenly thunder. Fire thunder is the foundation of Thunder Method, and everyone knows a little. But I don't know the 1st Wood Thunder, 7th Gold Thunder, and 5th Earth Thunder Method. How to refine Gui water, heavenly thunder?" Wang Chun asked in a low voice, Now, are you sure you can refine it? Sure, Gong said in a low voice. The key to refining Gui water, heavenly thunder, is genuine water. Gui water is the thunder of genuine water. It uses myriad thunder water as the base and bone-corroding real water. Using magic power to control these two kinds of real water to refine cotton, you can get morning jade thunder. Using myriad thunder water to refine fat, you can get North Pole thunder. Using myriad thunder water to refine earthly real water, you can get interior realm thunder. Wang Chun was a little confused by these genuine water, but he still wanted to give it a try, so he asked Sure Gong to fetch the raw materials to refine the heavenly thunder. Sure Gong was a little embarrassed and said, "It's difficult to refine genuine water, and even more difficult to preserve it. Young patriarch, please give me some time and allow me to buy the necessary metal and stone medicines to refine it." Wang Chun just said lightly, "Sure, but you need to remember that the lives of you and your disciple are tied to this. If you're one step late, there will be people from Shangqing Palace to deal with you, even without me punishing you." Sure Gong knew what was good for him. He had his own channels for the metal, stone, and medicine he needed for his cultivation, so he took the silver and left. When the sky was bright, he came back with a horse carriage with a lot of metal, stone, and ores on it, and even 2 slices of pork. Sure Gong ordered the 2 foolish men who followed him to cut off the fat on the 2 slices of pork and use them to refine oil. He carried a bucket of mysterious liquid and carefully carried it into the house. When he opened the lid, Wang Chun smelled a pungent smell and asked Sure Gong again. This was the bone-corroding real water he mentioned just now. Sure Gong explained, bone-corroding real water was called green vitriol in ancient times because it could only be made with rice vinegar and green vitriol before the Taoist magic showed its divinity. Later, when bone-corroding real water gradually became an important external medicine for Taoism, immortals used secret methods to extract this real water from iron ore. Speaking of iron ore, Wang Chun suddenly realized that this thick liquid seemed to be odorless, but had a faint special, stimulating feeling. Wasn't it sulfuric acid? Wang Chun's face was blank. He pointed at the bucket of sulfuric acid with impurities and asked, "Is this the bone-corroding real water you mentioned?" Sure Gong didn't know why he asked this question, so he answered uneasily, "Yes. It's really bone-corroding." Wang Chun's tone was slightly cold, and he continued to ask, "Then is the all-transforming thunder water also extremely corrosive like the bone-corroding real water, and it's made by refining saltpeter?" Sure Gong answered in surprise, "Grandmaster, you're right. That's true." Wang Chun said excitedly, "Calling nitric acid all-transforming thunder water is really creative. Nitric acid is the mother of explosives, and almost all explosives need to undergo nitrification. No wonder it's called all-transforming thunder water. Using oil to undergo nitrification. Isn't that nitroglycerin? Arctic true thunder, nitroglycerin? What's earthly water? Is the interior true thunder picric acid or RDX?" Sure Gong answered in confusion. The earthly water is refined from the mysterious evil spirit, which was called petroleum in ancient times, fierce fire oil. It's condensed from the mysterious evil spirit underground. It's like oil, black and thick, and it burns when it meets fire. Petroleum. Wang Chun gasped. The cornerstone of the chemical industry. You've all learned how to refine petroleum. Refining the mysterious evil spirit can produce several kinds of true water, but it's controlled by the imperial court, and only a few top-secret mines can produce it. The way Wang Chun looked at Sure Gong was as if he was looking at a living god. Only now did he understand why it was written in the Taoist scripture of the thunder method. The legal force is uncontrollable, and mortals who practice it will be smashed to pieces. It turned out that the Taoists were all people who refined nitroglycerin explosives by hand. Even with this level, they were still a group that needed the government to maintain stability and unity in the 21st century. The style of the Taoists in this world seemed a little wrong. Thinking of this, Wang Chun felt his feet go numb, and he almost wanted to run away. Anyone who had a Taoist priest beside them who was using concentrated sulfuric acid to process saltpeter to prepare the 10,000 transformation lightning water, nitric acid, and who was refining grease, preparing to undergo a saponification reaction, and then using the 10,000 transformation lightning water to refine grease to produce the North Pole true thunder, nitroglycerin, would have this reaction. Chapter 825. Although the ancient books claimed that supernatural power could greatly increase the stability of the Northern Pole true thunder, nitroglycerin, this kind of extremely unstable liquid explosive that would explode under the influence of gravity and at a temperature of 130 degrees Celsius still made Wang Chun avoid it. This thing was extremely unstable and difficult to transport. No wonder these Taoist priests did not dare to carry the true thunder with them, even though they knew that the thunder method was extremely powerful. Shi Gong said that the thunder method was extremely difficult to practice and extremely dangerous. Generally, only Taoist officials at the level of Taoist priests dared to practice it. Very few Taoist priests were proficient in the thunder method. Moreover, the external medicine needed for the thunder method of the 5 elements, including all kinds of true water, true gold, true earth, and divine iron, were all things controlled by the imperial court and were extremely precious. If it were not for the fact that Shi Gong had a lot of connections and was most familiar with these unorthodox methods, it would be absolutely impossible for him to get these external medicine needed for practicing the thunder method unless he was a Taoist official of the imperial court or a Taoist priest from a few major sections. It was said that the divine thunder of annihilation refined by Zhenren even required the use of luminous pearls and several kinds of extremely precious spirit stones. The most remarkable feature of these spirit stones was that they could emit all kinds of brilliance in the dark. They were extremely precious and were the natural ingredients and materials used by Zhenren to refine their supernatural power and refine the divine thunder. Ordinary people would be in danger of dying if they even saw it, let alone touching it. Zhenren controlled their flying swords and beheaded people from thousands of miles away. Some even carried the divine thunder on their flying swords and released the thunder from thousands of miles away, which could corrode hundreds of miles away. The reason why the several Grandmaster Zhenren of the evil sects could make the imperial court wary of them was largely because of this. Of course, this was not the only thing that made the imperial court wary of Zhenren with their great magical powers. In the Great Ming Dynasty, only the sects led by Zhenren could be rewarded by the imperial court. These were the reasons why they were born. These rumors made Wang Chun feel even more strange, especially the one about the divine thunder. Shi Gong once mentioned that the Jianzhou women were savages who once got the 13 mechas from outer space to start an army and pillaged the border of Jianzhou. Jianzhou women rebelled from time to time, but under the leadership of Li Chongliang, the valiant general, when Wang Gao, the powerful chieftain of Jianzhou, rebelled, Li Chongliang slaughtered all the people and animals in his tribe. His son wanted to avenge his father, but he was killed by Li Chongliang again. None of his descendants survived. Only the slave chieftain, Wild Swine Nu or Hachi, was originally a slave of Li Chongliang's adopted son. Because his father was mistakenly killed while leading the Ming army led by Li Chongliang to quell Wang Gao's rebellion, Hachi searched for Liaodong and found 13 mechas from outer space. The Wild Swine Nu or Hachi was killed by Li Chongliang when his father was killed by the divine thunder when he led the Ming army to quell Wang Gao's rebellion. Li Chongliang searched Liaodong and found 13 mechas from beyond the sky. Then he rebelled against the Ming dynasty. At the beginning, he attacked the city and broke the stronghold with great momentum. The imperial court ordered 6 Chuanjin Zhenren to bombard Liaodong with the divine thunder. They destroyed more than 20 cities of Jianzhou Nu Ji with the divine thunder. The cities were destroyed by the divine thunder, and the bodies of Jianzhou Nu Ji were burned to ashes. Nu Ha-Chi wore the divine armor from beyond the sky, and only 6 people followed him. The imperial court only found 6 broken armors in Jianzhou. In the past few years, there had been no news of him. It is said that the reason why the imperial court made such a big fuss was because of the 13 extraterrestrial heavenly armors that Nu Ha-Chi found. I once heard from the patriarch that the reason why the imperial court of the Great Ming Dynasty could suppress our Taoism and the heterodox and evil sects in the world was not only because our Taoism regarded it as the orthodoxy, but also because the imperial court had obtained the arsenal of the ancient holy emperor in heaven and earth. There were many holy emperor armors that were not inferior to our Taoism's ancient magic treasures. There were also magic treasures left by mighty people like Guangchengzi. In terms of foundation, they were not inferior to Taoism. The brocade guards of the imperial court monitored the world and guarded against the Taoism in Jianghu. They were guarded by mighty people like Zhenren. Later, when Taoism entered the imperial court and Taoists became officials, they were even more powerful. Young Patriarch, although the imperial court is bloated and slow, if we really attract the attention of the embroidered uniform guards, they might be even more difficult to deal with than Shanqing Palace. Shi Gong was a little worried, but he was not very nervous. He sighed and said, "Fortunately, the embroidered uniform guards are more afraid of the Chuanjian Taoism than us. As long as they don't touch the nobles of the two capitals, the aristocratic families will not be a problem." There were some things in Shi Gong's words that he did not make clear. However, Wang Chun was a master of literature who was familiar with history. Combining it with the political situation of the Ming Dynasty at that time, he quickly understood. The embroidered uniform guards in the east and west factories did not cause us trouble. I think there are more reasons than these. Maybe we even have a tacit understanding with them when we leave Mount Mao. Shi Gong raised his head in surprise. How did you know that, young patriarch? The politics of the imperial court is nothing more than the imperial power and the prime minister's power. The embroidered uniform guards are the emperor's men, and the east and west factories are all eunuchs, who are also the imperial power's lackeys. Then, how can the officials in the imperial court keep the emperor in check? Wang Chun sneered and said, "On one hand, they will be a hindrance. On the other hand, they will take advantage of the emperor. But these are all small branches. Fundamentally, we need to have a Taoist power that can keep the emperor in check." Chuanjian Taoism and Jingyi Taoism are originally rooted in the local areas, so it is easy for them to unite with the gentry. The local gentry and the court officials have a close relationship. Although there are differences, such as tax collection, but they're like lips and teeth, and it is time for them to unite and fight against the overly powerful imperial power. Shi Gong sighed and said, "Young patriarch's eyes are sharp. Although you have been trapped in the coffin for decades, you can talk about the world as if you were reading the lines on your palm. But there is one thing. Patriarch asked me before, do the Buddhists have any divine sense? I answer that there is none. But there is one party, although not belonging to the Buddhists, they have a close relationship with them. They are also one of the forces after the divine sense. This is the evil force that is on the same level as Mount Mao, the White Lotus sect, also known as the Luo sect. The White Lotus sect is half Buddhist and half Taoist. I don't know what kind of opportunity they have, but they call themselves the Ajadi matriarch who descended to the world to teach the people. They have also produced many great divine sense of the Zhenren generation, and they are called messengers. The White Lotus sect has 12 messengers, and 6 of them have been confirmed by the embroidered uniform guards. Including a leader and a saintess, there are actually 8 Zhenren. Speaking of which, they are just below the headquarters of Chuanjian Taoism and are slightly more powerful than Jingyi. However, they claim to want to overthrow the court and build a Buddhist country on earth. They really have a hometown, which is a big problem for the court. They're the main enemies of the East and West Depot, the embroidered uniform guards, and the Imperial Army. They have been repeatedly suppressed, and a few messengers have died. Now, there are only 6 messengers. Although the imperial power is strong, there are civil officials and gentry colluding with Taoism, and there is the rebellion of the Luo sect outside. They even want to pacify the borders from time to time. Naturally, they look down on the unorthodox sects like us. Sometimes, they even use us to discuss the real Taoist sections. Shi Gong sighed and said, "However, the number 1 sect in the world is still the imperial court. Although the Luo sect is strong, it is only a small threat. If it is not for the gentry and civil officials who secretly hold them back, their situation would be 10 times more difficult. The imperial court, Taoism, Luo sect, and the Jurchen. Wang Chun took a deep breath and said, "It is indeed a grand world. After the divine Taoism manifests, it is actually so exciting. As exciting as it is, that is a matter for the future." Shi Gong bowed and said, "Young patriarch, the most important thing now is to eradicate the phoenix and go to the Shangqing Palace's side yard. With the embroidered uniform guards and the 2 depot keeping them in check, the Shangqing Palace will not be able to send any powerful people. This is not a difficult task. But if the fact that we have the treasure left behind by Patriarch Jiao is leaked, we will never have a day of peace. At that time, the various forces of the imperial court and the messy sects of the Luo sect will come knocking on our door." Wang Chun stood up and tiptoed to pick up a bag of white, floating soil. He threw it to the old Taoist Shi Gong and said, "First, buy some external medicine according to this." Shi Gong said doubtfully, "This white calamity soil is used by the kiln factories to make porcelain. In the Taoist sects, it is only used to make glaze. It can make the green glaze clear. What is the use of this?" Wang Chun came to the front of the silo and said in a low voice, "Just do it. I have a kind of thunder magic that needs it to be refined." He thought to himself, "Do you think I will tell you that I have been using the radar on the silo to analyze the raw materials you have brought? Diatomaceous earth. I remember that this thing is produced everywhere, but the best is in Jilin, which is now Liaodong. Who would have thought? With the Taoist magic and the commodity economy, even this thing has become an elixir and is sold everywhere. As a student of the Chinese language department, I do not read many scientific materials, but I have read a lot of stories about famous people. I still remember that after Nobel invented nitroglycerin explosives, because nitroglycerin liquid was not easy to transport, he later invented a safer gelatinous explosive. Diatomaceous earth was the stabilizer before he invented the gelatinous explosive. There is also nitrocellulose, which is also the true morning thunder. After being immersed in nitroglycerin, the colloid formed by nitrocellulose dissolved in nitroglycerin is called explosive glue, and it is also an important raw material for gelatinous bombs. Wang Chun sighed. In this era where there may be people making nuclear bombs by hand, if I do not risk this 50 kilograms of meat, I can forget about being a time traveler. Chapter 826. The morning stars twinkled above the Phoenix Mountain, and the full moon hung high in the sky. It was a beautiful day with clear skies and sparse clouds. The mountain path twisted and turned across the hill. The dewy weeds wet Wang Chen's shoes. Wang Chun was carrying a cyan cloth package. Inside the package was a small square cake wrapped in the wrapping paper of the most famous Jinji pastry shop in Suzhou, gelatinous explosives. This made Wang Chun look like a scholar carrying snacks up the mountain, if his short hair was ignored. The finished product of the gelatinous explosives was a pale yellow powder. After mixing with nitroglycerin, it could be molded into a mud-like flour. Although it looked like a pastry, it still had a faint smell of chemical raw materials. Wang Chun covered the real bombs with icing and even added some rich spices to cover it up. Wang Chun felt regretful. If he had more time, when he made the cream, it would be more convenient to cover it up with the framing of Western-style pastry. Now these real bombs looked delicious, and no one would doubt it if he said they were new products of Jinji pastry in this small town where traffic was not developed. Shi Gong followed Wang Chun along the path. Today, they were going to do a deal of extermination, so Wang Chun had to be cautious. He was a new face, and although his short hair was a little eye-catching, the Taoist temple was not the government, and they would not stop and interrogate people. A short-haired stranger going up the mountain in the early hours of the morning was a little strange, but compared to the conspicuous target of Shi Gong, it was not a big mistake. After all, the Taoist priests of Shangqing Palace had never seen Wang Chun. If they could recognize him, it would be strange. The gun in Wang Chun's arms was pointed at his waist, but it gave him a strange sense of security. Wang Chun recalled the last memory he had before he traveled to this world. Blood, fire, women's cries, men's wails, and the sounds of smashing and shattering glass. Those familiar people were lying in pools of blood, being baked by the increasingly hot sun. And those cannibalistic corpses. To this day, he clearly remembered the strange feeling when he swung the iron rod and smashed the head of the corpse, whose throat was exposed to the air and had a rotten smell. At that time, he was bitten on the shin by an irritable and crazy rat. He seemed to have contracted some kind of virus. His head became heavier and heavier, and his body began to heat up. However, he could not treat himself. After leaving the neighborhood, without the protection of the walls, the first thing they had to face were the rampaging animals and corpses on the streets. The survivors gathered in a remote building in the community and formed a temporary group, waiting for the government to rescue them. Gunshots kept ringing in the distance, making them afraid, but also bringing a little bit of comfort. Originally, an injured person like Wang Chun should be receiving care and treatment in the rear. The survivors collected the medicines that they and their neighbors always had, and a doctor set up an emergency room in the rear. However, when the disaster broke out, it was the working hours. The survivors in the community were old and young, and there were too few men in their prime. Wang Chun had to join the cleaning up of the rampaging pet dogs and corpses in the community. At the very least, he had to block the gate of the community and create a second line of defense. Wang Chun did not know the cause of the disaster. He only heard that other than their city, the rest of the country was still under the control of the government, and there was no great chaos. There was also no news of a plague that could make the animals go berserk and the dead come back to life, just like the zombie virus in science fiction. This was also the reason why the survivors had the confidence to hold on until the government came to rescue them. The radio kept reminding them to go home and form an organization to wait for the rescue. Perhaps everything originated from a meteor shower that spread all over the world on the night of December 21st. The meteorite fell in Canada, within the Arctic Circle. It was said that it was an ice-based meteorite. After it disintegrated in the atmosphere, some of its fragments scattered, and one of the fragments fell into the sea near the city where Wang Chun lived. Wang Chun learned this from his friends in the group chat. Some people joked that they wanted to become meteorite hunters and search for precious meteorites that cost tens of thousands of yuan per gram. However, others immediately retorted that even if the ice-based meteorite did not burn to ashes, it should have melted in the sea. That night, the sky was as red as blood. Wang Chun's thoughts were a little far away, but when the side yard of Shangqing Palace appeared in his sight, he was still a little absent-minded. He clenched the hard wooden stick in his right hand and felt that it was heavy, a bit like the iron stick he used that day. This thing looked like the crutch used by scholars when they climbed the mountain, but it was the third weapon in Wang Chun's hand. He carefully wrapped the head of the stick with a circle of iron, hoping that the center of gravity would be more balanced when he swung it. Wang Chun waited patiently in the woods outside the side yard of Shangqing Palace for a while until the morning bell rang faintly. Only then did he feel his way to the left side of the gate of the Taoist temple. The Taoist temple was built along the mountainside, and Shengong had explained the terrain and layout of the temple to him very clearly. Wang Chun easily found a place that was easier to climb over the high wall with the help of the mountainside. He clumsily climbed up a tree and climbed over the wall. The side yard of Shangqing Palace was built along the mountainside. More than a dozen courtyards of different sizes and winding corridors were scattered according to the terrain. However, the Mountain Gate, the Three Pristines Temple, and the Yellow Emperor Temple were always built on the central axis, solemn and solemn. They were low at the front and high at the back, and the difference was even 3 or 4 stories high. First, he had to go to the fireworks yard. The Taoist fireworkers had to heat up the fire before they could go to the main hall, the Three Pristines Temple, to attend the morning classes. When the host of the morning classes recited scriptures, they had to drink tea and hot water. They also had to wash and clean. The outer disciples and ordinary Taoist children could use cold water to cope with it, but the 3 true Taoist priests had to send hot water. Therefore, the fireworks yard was the busiest yard in the Taoist temple for the morning classes every day. At this time, the hot water for washing should have been sent out and the water for the morning classes should be boiling. The Taoist priests were very quiet. In the fireworks yard, the 3 Taoist priests were busy adding firewood and boiling water, but they were orderly and silent. Although the Taoist priests in the fireworks yard were thin, their arms were full of muscles. Every day, they carried a kettle that weighed dozens of kilograms and ran around. Anyone could have a body full of muscles. Shingon also specially told them that if they could avoid killing people, they should not kill those Taoist fireworkers. After all, there were incense burning. Patriarch Dujio was also a Taoist fireworker in Shangqing Palace in the past. It could be seen that the work of the Taoist fireworkers and the fireworks monk was a crouching tiger and hidden dragon. They were probably second only to the librarians of the Sutras Depository. After all, the ancestor of Taoism, Laozi, Taishang Laojun, was also the librarian of the National Library of the Zhou dynasty. Wang Chun picked up the ironclad heavy stick and waited quietly at the corner of a corridor next to the Institute of Pyrotechnics. When a Taoist priest carrying a large hot water teapot came out from inside and hurried downstairs, Wang Chun went around to the back of the Taoist priest, stood on his tiptoes, and smashed the back of the Taoist priest's neck with a heavy stick. The Taoist priest fell down the stairs together with the teapot. He seemed to be scalded by the hot water, twitched twice, and then passed out. Wang Chun flashed over from the side, carried the unconscious Taoist priest, and threw him into a wing room not far away. He hesitated for a moment and finally did not break the poor Taoist priest's neck. Most of the hot water in the iron kettle was spilled, but Wang Chun still carried it and went straight into the fireworks yard. The 2 Taoist priests were still busy boiling water, and Shingon had already followed them. Wang Chun winked at him and went straight into the yard. The 2 Taoist priests heard the noise and looked up in surprise. When they saw a strange scholar, one of them immediately stood up and asked, "Scholar, where did you come from?" Wang Chun pretended to clasp his hands and said, "I'm a scholar passing by. Because I love the scenery of Phoenix Mountain, I just asked the abbot to let me stay for a day." "Then you have to." The Taoist fireworker in front wanted to say something, but Wang Chun had already approached him. Shengong had already sneaked up from behind when Wang Chun attracted the attention of the 2 Taoist priests and hit the back of the carotid artery of the Taoist priest behind him. Wang Chun pretended to be shocked and pointed behind the Taoist priest. When he turned his head to look, the heavy stick had already hit his head. Shengong sneaked up in silence. He chose a Taoist priest with a similar figure to him and began to strip off his clothes. Wang Chun turned around and tied up the 3 Taoist fireworkers with a cowhide rope brought by Shengong. He also stuffed a mouthpiece with a condom into their mouths, which was also brought by Shengong. Wang Chun knew that stuffing a rag or something like that could be pushed out with the tongue, so the mouthpiece was more useful. So he also made a few and used them on the 3 Taoist fireworkers. As for the people behind him, Wang Chun did not want to trouble them so much and let them live. Chapter 827. Outside the 3 Pure Hall of the Taoist temple, the sky was already faintly turning white. A dim oil lamp was placed in front of the statues of the 3 Pure Ones, and behind it were 3 shabby yellow prayer mats. The 3 Pure Hall was not big because the Shangqing Palace on Phoenix Mountain was originally a small Taoist temple. It was about 10 feet long, and the statues of the 3 Pure Ones were high up. There were some tables and chairs on both sides of the hall. Jiang Taichung sat on one of the chairs, thinking about something. He tiptoed to pick up the teacup on the table. It was a high-quality Long Quan kiln teacup that glowed like a clamshell. The hot water is slow today, Jiang Taichung thought. I'll have to tell them later to be quick and diligent. Our sect will send people soon, so they can't be so slow. Thinking of the people from our sect, Jiang Taichung felt a little proud. This was a stroke of genius. That young disciple of the morgue often came, so he thought he was also a Taoist. Who in the entire morgue looked at him in the eye? Who knew? There was actually such a big fish behind him. Mountain, heretical sects, a hidden danger to our sect. How arrogant was Chun Jiogong when he was here? Our sect had to retreat, and I heard that they even fought before. But now, if they did not join the orthodox sects, their souls would disappear, and they would not even be able to keep their orthodoxy. Taoist! Huh! How could a demon from Mao Mountain be worthy of being called a Taoist? The heavens did not give up on me. That day I just had nothing to do, so I asked jokingly. I didn't expect that the little bastard from the morgue would be able to get such important information. The remnants of Mao Mountain. Back then, Chun Jiogong was also considered an outstanding person, a commonplace person, but he was able to create such a large family business. When Mao Mountain was at its peak, there were 3 perfected masters, 19 Taoists, and hundreds of Taoist priests. It was like adding oil to a raging fire, although it had declined now. But who could say for sure how much wealth they had left? Perhaps there would be some magic artifacts. Thinking about it, there might even be magic artifacts. Thinking of this, Jiang Taichung could not help but feel hot all over and his mouth dry. He subconsciously lifted the teacup and felt the weight in his hand lighten. Only then did he realize the hot water is too slow today. In a while, I'll have to properly reprimand those workers. It was precisely because Jiang Taichung was worried that the 2 orphans in the morgue had magic tools or even magic treasures that he sent the news up. Otherwise, he Taoist Jiang also knew people from all walks of life. It was easy to sneak up to an old man and a child in the middle of the night and kill them, but it was not so easy to become a disciple of Mao Mountain. He was like an ancestor to all sorts of people. Otherwise, why would he bother to give the oil to those arrogant Taoist priests of his sect? Jiang Taichung sighed and raised his head. Counting the time, there was still 1 day, 2 days, 5 days left. 5 days to rush here from Mount Mao was already an extremely fast speed. If it weren't for the fact that the Taoist priests had talismans as a means of communication, which saved them the time needed to travel from here to Mao Mountain, how could they have arrived so quickly? It wasn't even that convenient for the imperial court to send the court bulletins. Other than the east and west factories and the brocade guard, who dared to trouble the Taoist priests of the imperial court. Currently, the administrative envoys of the various provinces had not completely implemented Taoist communication. In some remote provinces, there were no Taoist priests by the side of the provincial governors, and they still had to use courier stations to deliver memorials and documents. The heavens had taken pity on them. Even the merchants of Jiangnan had a communication talisman like the divine talisman. Jiang Taichung counted the time here. He didn't dare to send people to spy on the remnants of Little Mao Mountain. Based on the surveillance methods of the Taoist priests under him, it was more accurate to say that they were tipping off the evil Taoist priests of Lower Mao Mountain. The Taoist priests of Lower Mao Mountain were the ancestors of the unorthodox sects. At this time, the Taoist priests and Taoist children of the Tai Ching Palace's side courtyard had begun to gather in the 3 Pure Temple. The other 2 authentic Taoist priests who had received the scripture could naturally enter the 3 Pure Temple. But those Taoist children, have you seen the Taoist children whose beards were all white? A Taoist child with well-developed muscles and skilled martial arts, whose chest and arms were even more magnificent than a woman's, were not rare either. These Taoist children could only kneel on the patio under the 3 pristine temple with a meditation cushion. A muscular Taoist child might have woken up late, but he hurriedly rushed to the 3 Pure Temple from the winding corridor. The sky was a little dark, and he saw a Taoist priest, Taoist child of the Pyrotechnics Institute, carrying a teapot, hurriedly walking towards the 3 Pure Temple. The Taoist child had a hunched back, and it could be seen that he was also not young. The outer court disciple, who was called Taoist child and written as Taoist soldier, thug in guard, intentionally bumped into the Taoist fireman, causing him to stagger. Only then did he chuckle and proudly wanted to see the embarrassing scene of the Taoist fireman protecting the teapot. However, he only saw that the Taoist fireman seemed to be in a sorry state, but in actuality, he quickly stuck to his side. The teapot that was filled with hot water was lightly held in one hand, and the other hand grabbed his face. The man felt that the big, skinny hand that grabbed his face was like a cast of iron, forcefully squeezing him. The big hand twisted slightly, and a clear crack sounded in the silent corridor. The man's head twisted at an angle that was not possible for a normal human being. The figure that looked like the Taoist fireman, with just a little force, pushed the heavy body behind a clump of weeds. Wang Chun was a little further behind. He was also wearing a loose Taoist robe that did not fit him, and his face was covered with some potash. But compared with the disguise of the Taoist fireman in front of him, he was very careless. He was holding a wooden tray, covering most of his face, on which there were very delicate pastries. The pastries wrapped in white icing looked quite delicious. When Wang Chun left the Pyrotechnics Institute, he took a knife with him. After all, he was a member of the righteous sect. When cooking cattle and slaughtering sheep in a Taoist temple, there were always a few good butcher knives. The knives for slaughtering cattle and sheep were fast, and they were also very neat. If it were a Taoist temple of the Chuanjin sect, Wang Chun would be lucky to find 2 kitchen knives. But now, with the ox-eared knife in hand, the killing intent was aroused. The closer they were to the Three Pristines temple, the more likely it was that they would encounter other Taoist priests. Before turning a corner, Wang Chun rubbed his nose and almost bumped into a Taoist boy. He let out an "ah," but before he could see clearly, Wang Chun had sent the ox-eared knife into his body. The knife was inserted obliquely from the diaphragm between his chest and abdomen, and then poured into his lungs. The Taoist boy was an adult, but he was only a few years old. His young face was a little blank, and before he understood what had happened, blood with pink bubbles sprayed from his mouth. The blood made Wang Chun's face smell of blood. Wang Chun calmly twisted the knife handle, turned it half a circle, and slowly pulled out the sharp knife. He took out a white cotton cloth from the back of his Taoist robe, carefully wiped his face clean, and continued to move forward without changing his expression. With a sharp weapon in one's chest, the killing intent was aroused. Wang Chun took 2 steps forward and turned to the patio. There were already Taoist children sitting on the patio in 2s and 3s with rush cushions, ready to meditate. Looking down, Wang Chun saw the main hall of the 3 pure lineages. Taoist Jiang and 2 other Taoists were sitting inside. The old Taoist Shigong was carrying a teapot with a dull look on his face and walking upstairs. Wang Chun lowered the tray and walked forward with a relaxed expression. When he came to the Taoist boys, his hand trembled slightly, and 2 pieces of frosted pastries fell to the ground. The Taoist next to him exclaimed in a low voice. Wang Chun pretended not to see it and continued to walk up. He saw old Taoist Shigong had already lifted the teapot, and someone behind him shouted, "Something fell." Sugar cakes fell to the ground. In the Three Pristines temple, Shigong drew the boiling hot teapot and suddenly splashed it on the faces of the 3 Taoist priests. Wang Chun lifted the tray behind him and rushed to the Three Pristines temple at the fastest speed he had ever run in his life. In the Three Pristines temple, Taoist Zhang's scream had just sounded, and old Taoist Shigong had already hit 1 person with the teapot at lightning speed. Wang Chun took 2 steps at a time. An ox-eared knife directly pierced the stomach of a Taoist priest who was barely able to open his eyes. He held the Taoist priest and stabbed him 3 times. Chapter 828. Taoist Zhang woke up in a daze. His mind was groggy, and his empty mind was reverberating with intense pain. He struggled for a while and found that he could not move his body. The pain at the back of his head made it difficult for his brain to function properly, causing him to moan unconsciously. A series of muffled sounds, sometimes loud and sometimes soft, reached his ears. The art of torture is very exquisite. We need to rely on science. We can't get what we want with brute force. Leave everything to me, young patriarch. Let's go to Mao Mountain and come up with 180 ways to make that old thing regret living in this world. How vulgar. I've read about your unorthodox methods. It's written in the books that you use to flay people. Spasm, bone marrow, scraping, bamboo skewers, eye piercing, and putting a small metal brush in the urinal. It's vicious enough, but it's more about venting anger than extorting a confession. I don't approve of torturing until the target is disabled or even dead. Jianghe methods? I know. You want him to be afraid of you. Cruel, terrifying, and inhumane. Most importantly, when it's time to use torture, it'll be a vengeance. Vengeance. Venting anger is the most important thing, but we're not venting anger now. We're trying to get something out of his mouth. So, let me try first, all right? Go ahead, young patriarch. We wouldn't dare to say anything. Sigh, don't say that. It's a discussion. It's to better complete the mission and achieve the goal. I'm not using my authority to pressure you. Am I right? We're discussing to get the thing out of his mouth and to better complete the mission, right? If you have to listen to me just because I'm the young patriarch, what's the point of this meeting? What about now? He'll be fine for the time being if we use my method. When it's proven that my method doesn't work, you'll do it. We won't regret it even if we cripple or kill him. Do you agree? Let's discuss this democratically and equally. You're right, young patriarch. Taoist priest Jiang was completely awake by then. He did not dare open his eyes and pretended to be unconscious, but he soon heard something that made him despair. Then, young patriarch, I'll get some water to splash him. There's no need, the young man with a strange Beijing accent said. He's already awake. Taoist Jiang felt someone walking up to him and looking at him. The young voice continued, Look, the state of the eyes under the eyelids of a person who is awake is different from that of a person who is unconscious. There was another rustling sound. Taoist Jiang felt someone pry open his eyelids, and a dazzling light shone on his eyes, causing them to sting. When there's light, the pupils will shrink, but when you're in a deep coma, the pupil's reaction to light will disappear. This is a conditioned reflex that humans can't overcome. For someone like him, who can't stop blinking in tears, it's even more so. The hand that pinched Taoist Jiang's eyelids loosened, and all Taoist Jiang could see was whiteness. He kept blinking and shaking his head, no longer trying to pretend to be unconscious. The voice asked again, Taoist priest sure, how did you know that he was awake? Young patriarch, his shoulders are tense. The shoulders of a person who is unconscious will be more relaxed, but he's too nervous, and the expression on his face. Taoist Jiang listened to the two voices and discussed 7 or 8 ways to distinguish the features of a person's expression and posture. Finally, he could see a bit of light and shadow. Standing in front of him was an excessively young man with short hair. His expression was calm, and when he looked at him, it was as if Wang Chun looked at the only clue in his hand with relief. Healthy and sober, he had already asked other survivors in the Taoist temple and tested all kinds of knowledge about extorting confessions by torture that he had heard in his previous life. But because those clues were not as precious as those of Taoist Jiang and Abbot Jiang, he even asked Shigong to test them on Mount Mao. They used all kinds of methods, which were quite bloody. But to his disappointment, the others knew very little information. This Abbot Jiang was a man with a sense of confidentiality, except for some vague and trivial things from the mouth of another surviving Taoist. There was no real clue about the people from Shanqing Palace. Therefore, it was very necessary to ensure that Taoist Jiang could be completely healthy, calm, and tell what he knew calmly. Wang Chen's teacher Shigong said, when extorting information, you should keep the interrogator awake and calm. You've made it so bloody and cruel that he's crazy. How can you guarantee that what he says is true, orderly, clear, and complete? It's true that we can get something out of him that way, but whether it's clear, and complete will be a mess. The brocade guard uses those methods because they don't need a clear and complete confession. It's a way to deal with superiors, get promoted, and get rich. Therefore, it has to be cruel and ruthless. People in Jianghu use these methods because they want to vent their anger and revenge. This is the method that the brocade guard uses to vent their anger as officials and people in Jianghu. But our method of doing things is different. Doing things, it has to be orderly and clear and realistic, right? According to the research of the CIA, the truth of the information obtained through torture is less than 10%. They will confess some things and make up some stories to avoid being tortured. The CIA? It's the brocade guard of another country across the sea. In this country, the brocade guard has spent so much time studying these things. I'm afraid that the officials there are more cruel than those in the Great Ming Dynasty. With such harsh laws, there will be no peace. Huh, Wang Chun said with a smile. It's the world's police. Naturally, it needs to be used everywhere. Taoist Jiang saw a young Taoist bring a bowl of water to Wang Chun. There was a layer of ice on the surface of the water. The young Taoist said in a crisp voice, "Grandmaster, I found their ice cellar. As you instructed, I broke it and sprinkled it into the basin." Wang Chun rolled up his sleeves and said to the old and the young beside him with a gentle smile, "I don't know why I used ice either, but seeing that they all used it, I followed suit. But it's said that with this improvement, the death rate of torture has been greatly reduced. It might have something to do with the oxygen in the blood. Now I use water without chili powder. I'm not familiar with it before, so I used chili powder first in a hurry. Besides, I didn't have a good grasp of time and didn't have a watch, so it's hard to keep track of time. That's why some people died of torture. Now that I have experience, I should be able to grasp it better." Wang Chun turned to Taoist Jiang and said, "Let's go through it first. As for the questions, I'll ask you later." Taoist Jiang saw Wang Chun lift the basin to him, and an old Taoist grabbed his hair. He said in horror, "Wait, what do you want to ask?" "I'll tell you now. I'll tell you now." Don't. Wang Chun said calmly, Don't worry. It's useless to worry. Let's go through it first. If there's something, you can tell me when I ask you." Sure, Gong nodded and said, "That's right. Let's go through it first." Then Taoist Jiang felt someone was pulling his scalp until it went numb. A strong force pressed his head into the basin, and the cold water splashed on his face. Taoist Jiang struggled violently, but Wang Chun and Sure Gong held him firmly. Wang Chun counted silently, 1, 2, 3. It was as if he was not torturing, but completing a mission. Taoist Jiang's violent struggle consumed the oxygen in his blood quickly. In less than 50 strokes, he couldn't help but open his mouth to breathe and swallow hard. A large amount of water was sucked into his stomach, lungs, trachea, and bronchus, causing a strong stimulation that made him cough and vomit. But coughing the water only made the water rush into his trachea faster. Taoist Jiang's hands, which were held down, began to struggle like a dehydrated fish. His legs kicked wildly, and he tasted the pain of his lungs and trachea burning. The little Taoist sat on his feet to prevent him from knocking over the basin. Chapter 829. After the water torture, Taoist Jiang was like a frightened bird. He kept shouting, I'll talk. Wang Chun never expected that an official Taoist of the Shanqing Palace, a Taoist who had supernatural power, could be so weak. He could even go through the torture several times for those injured outer disciples. He could only sigh with emotion. It seemed that practicing martial arts could really strengthen one's willpower. He had to kindly comfort him. Abba Jiang, you can think about it now and sort out your memory. But the water torture, we still have to go through it. It will be over soon. Wang Chun moved a chair and a stool that had been simply modified. A wooden stake was installed vertically on the other end of the stool. This was the traditional culture that Wang Chun learned from movies and TV shows that reflected the cruelty of the old society. It was called the tiger stool. In the early years of the party's development, it was quite famous. The so-called people made of special materials came from it. Wang Chun didn't believe that the religious people and landlords in the old society could be more powerful than the members of a certain party. When Taoist Jiang was tied to the stool, he probably hadn't seen such a traditional culture, so he could still ask Wang Chun, what on earth do you want to ask? You don't want to ask anything. You can't do this. You can't do this. You lunatic. Wang Chun began to add bricks under Taoist Jiang's heel. Hearing Taoist Jiang's screams, Wang Chun took out those balls and put them on him under Taoist Jiang's terrified eyes. Then, he comforted him with kind words. This is to prevent you from biting your tongue. Don't worry, our punishment won't threaten your life. More than anyone else, we want you to live a healthy life. The punishment is to make you suffer, not to torture you. Do you understand? Taoist Jiang looked at him in horror. Wang Chun pressed Jiang Taichung's head and sighed with emotion. Long live your understanding. I purposely drilled a few holes in your mouth not to make you drool. I'm not that disgusting. I did it so that when the water is flushed, it can be poured in. So, this is not an insult to your character. I absolutely understand other people's character. Taoist Jiang's face was covered with saliva and snot. He widened his eyes and looked at him in horror. Wang Chun waited for Division Master Gong to add a few more bricks. When he saw Division Master Gong nod at him, Wang Chun knew this was the limit of the tiger stool. If it was raised any higher, it would hurt Taoist Zhang's body. He waited quietly for a while. To Taoist Zhang, this period of time was as long as a century. Then, Wang Chun took out a soft cotton cloth used to wipe sweat and gently covered Taoist Zhang's face. He picked up the kettle and shook the ice inside. Then, he began to pour water into the kettle unhurriedly. Taoist Zhang's body began to struggle violently again. After a long time of endless pain, Taoist Zhang was finally dragged to a modified wooden armchair. Wang Chun sat opposite him and said with a gentle smile, "Now, let's start with the questions. Did you report to the Qing Palace that there are Taoists from Lower Maoshan hiding in the righteous manner?" Taoist Zhang, who was sitting across from him, was trembling all over as he answered, "Yes. Please tell me again about the conversation you had with the little Taoist from the righteous manner, who is also Taoist Shi's little disciple." Taoist Zhang had been very obedient under Wang Chun's training in the first few rounds. In the last round of torture, Wang Chun even made him memorize the outline of the conversation, including how to state it, what to say, and what grammar to use. He had already memorized all of it. Therefore, Taoist Zhang answered very obediently. That day, on the 11th day of the 9th month of the Guizhou year, it was at noon, no, a quarter before noon. According to Taoist Zhang's confession, he reported this matter to the Qing Palace. The Golden Court Elixir Imperial Talisman of the Qing Dynasty is a secret technique of the Qing Palace. Its advantage is that it is cheap and easy to use. Although the heavenly hearing and earthly vision talisman can transmit sound and even images, it is a divine talisman that can only be refined by Taoists in the Taoist realm. However, the Golden Court Elixir Imperial Talisman of the Qing Palace can be refined by Taoists, but can only transmit about 50 characters. According to Taoist Zhang's confession, the full text is as follows. The news sent by Taoist Zhang had already been read by Taoist Palace, which made him heave a sigh of relief. Although the higher-ups had guessed the identity of the Taoists from Mao Mountain, the information about the ancestral treasure revealed by his little disciple was vague and unclear. Perhaps Taoist Zhang himself did not dare to guess that the magic weapon in the hands of the two orphans in the righteous manner was the most precious treasure of Lower Maoshan, the ancestral robe of Duke Jiao, an ancient magic weapon. Not only did Wang Chun get the reply from the Qing Palace through torture, but he also made Taoist Zhang confess a lot of information about the Qing Palace and asked him to guess who was coming. In the end, the information obtained was relatively complete. There are only 5 people from the Qing Palace this time. The lowest rank is Taoist Zhang, who is led by a Taoist. But the identities of the 4 Taoists are unknown. But the Qing Palace has told us that the Taoist is a Taoist of the Qing Palace with the surname Yun, Taoist Zhang's martial uncle. His Taoist name is Yun Lu, and his secular surname is Gui Yun Lu. His date of birth is unknown. He joined the Qing Palace in the 3rd year of the Wanli calendar. He is good at talisman magic and martial arts. When he was young, he practiced the southern boxing. Later, his Taoist magic manifested, and he mastered the northern true thunder dragon chopping hand. He is the best among the Taoists in the Qing Palace. When he heard this, Taoist Palace was on the verge of collapsing. He said in a daze, "They actually sent Taoists here? They actually sent Taoists here? We're just a threat. Why would they do this? How vicious is the Qing Palace of Mao Mountain?" Almost in despair, Taoist Palace was about to rush forward and kill Taoist Zhang with his palm. But Wang Chun stopped him. "Stop panicking. You're at a loss. As soon as you hear the identity of the enemy, where is your sense of propriety? If it's a Taoist who comes, are you going to surrender yourself?" Instinctively, Taoist Palace still obeyed the order of Wang Chun, the young patriarch. He was stunned and stood there in a daze. Wang Chun continued, "Gui Yun Lu is a Taoist with a high status in the Qing Palace. This time, he's here to wipe out the remnants of Mao Mountain. It's just along the way. Although the ancestral court of Mao Mountain is in Mao Mountain, you guys have a grudge against the Qing Palace and set up a sect in Mount Luofu in Guangdong province. Later, after the Qing palace plotted against you guys, they also took over Mount Luofu. This time, the Chuanjin sect in the north is going to invade the south. In order to protect their escape route, the Qing palace sent Guo Yunlu south to Mount Luofu to officially open the gate of Mao Mountain in southeast. So, we're actually so unlucky? Does the heavens want me to leave Mao Mountain? Daoist Palace said in grief and indignation. There are still 5 days before Wei Yunlu and the others come here. We still have a way out. Before Wang Chun could finish, Daoist Palace shook his head and said, "There's no way out, Patriarch. If a Daoist comes here, we won't be able to hide the fact that we've buried the treasure of our Patriarch. A Daoist knows life and death, observes the destiny of heaven, observes the minutest details, and calculates everything. The treasure of our Patriarch is gone. Even if I have to die here, I can't sit back and watch the treasure of our Patriarch fall into the hands of others." Daoist Palace said mournfully, "If the treasure is with us, we'll live. If the treasure is lost, we'll die." Daoist Palace said resolutely. Chapter 830. Has he really fallen out with me? Chenong looked around and realized that he was in a secluded forest. He was already in an extremely high place. Looking around, he could see thousands of mountains like halberds and tens of thousands of feet spread out. The plants and trees on his left and right were the Four Seasons excellent trees and strange zoysia grass. They were not the same as the mortals. He understood that the Lord had interfered with the process of his return and did not know which world he had been banished to. Chun Ang's various arrangements in the Lord God space eventually triggered the cleaning mechanism of the Lord God space. The Lord God couldn't do anything to him. He could only wait for him to return and then think of a way to kick him out. This world was used by the Lord God to exile him. It was most likely an extremely dangerous world, and it might even make the Lord God suffer. Chunong took a glance and went deep into the microscopic origin of this world. Only then did he realize that there were no atoms or molecules in this world. It was all formed by Qi. Vital Qi created the world, and Qi formed the world. This was the most orthodox worldview of the immortal Tao. He felt that he was incompatible with this world. He smiled slightly, and with a turn, he recovered his heavenly river Dharma power and changed into a Taoist priest's attire. At this moment, a song suddenly sounded in front of him. Watching the chess game, chopping wood, walking slowly at the entrance of the valley by the cloud, selling firewood for wine, laughing wildly to cultivate one's love. Facing the moon and resting at the roots, one sleeps until dawn. Chenong came to a realization. So it's a world created by the Tai Ching perfected. The Lord is indeed sinister. He wants to use the Tai Ching to get rid of me. It's a pity that the Tai Ching does nothing. As the saying goes, there is no prohibition. Why would he make things difficult for me? He would probably just find it interesting. Among the three pure ones, the Tai Ching did nothing. The world he created did not have a tight karma net like the world of Shushan. That sect master Chun and the Tai Ching were both sect master saints. It would probably be more convenient for Chunong to be here. After singing once, Chunong saw a woodcutter with a bamboo hat on his head, dressed in cloth clothes, and holding a steel axe in his hand. He turned around quietly and was suddenly stopped by a macaque halfway down a mountain. The man and the monkey kept talking there. Chunong felt a little emotional. In the world created by perfected Tai Ching, the divine Tao was superior to the human Tao. It was really not what he wanted. In this world, the path of godhood was superior to that of humanity. Smelting, farming, and customs were all interfered with by the gods. Perhaps it had long deviated from the path of development of humanity. That was why there were things like woodcutters using steel axes in the mountains during the spring and autumn period. In this world where gods interfered with everything, one really could not use the common sense of those worlds where humanity flourished. Perhaps the rise and fall of dynasties and the pattern of humanity were all affected by the path of godhood. The macaque in front talked about the woodcutter for a long time before turning around to go up the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, he saw a Taoist dressed in feathered robes and wearing a starry crown. His face was like jade as he looked out of the mountain endlessly. The mist between the peaks churned and landed under the Taoist's feet, making him look like a celestial being. The macaque hurriedly went up and asked, Old immortal, disciple is going to. Chenong smiled at him and shook his head. You macaque, why are you calling everyone immortal? Did you think that I didn't hear you asking the woodcutter down there? At this moment, the macaque didn't have a name and only had a nickname. It was called the Monkey King. It mimicked humans and bowed. Old immortal, since you heard it, then allow me to explain. I'm a disciple from the East Sea's Ao Lai country who came here to cultivate. I heard from Big Brother Woodcutter that this is Mount Lingtai Fongsuan and there's a patriarch subhoodie here. He's an old immortal with great achievements in cultivation. I'm not patriarch subhoodie. Chenong shook his head. However, I've heard of his great name before. He has a cave abode on the mountain called the Cave of 3 Stars, Slanting Moon. Because this name has something to do with an evil sect 10,000 miles to the west, I've never been fond of it. Therefore, I've never had much contact with it. I've only heard that he has many disciples under him, and they teach immortals divination, plucking yin and yang, and the ability to harmonize women's breasts. With this kind of fake cultivation, how can you enter the real sect? Chenong looked at the macaque and shook his head. Could it be that you, a macaque, are also willing to imitate humans and consume human milk, plucking yin to nourish yang? I've heard that apes and monkeys are lustful. There are often demons who become famous and go around abducting beautiful women. Some are called Shun Changong, some are called Salang, and there are also people like Zhou Jia and Bo Fu. They're extremely lecherous. The courageous male monkeys call themselves the omnipotent sage, Monkey King, and the female monkeys call themselves Old Mother of Mountly. Do you want to learn from them? The macaque said, I don't dare. Disciple is a proper cultivator and doesn't dare to have such messy thoughts. Then what do you want to learn? Chenong asked with a serious expression. The macaque bowed his head and said, Disciple was originally a stone monkey in the mountain. I played and played all day, plucking flowers and fruits, living a carefree life. After a long time, I saw the old monkey in the mountain die of old age. Only then did I realize that there's a great terror between life and death. Thus, the desire to pursue immortality was born. I came all the way from Ao Lai country just for the sake of immortality. I begged the old immortal to give me 1 or 2 pointers. The art of immortality. Chenong said ruefully, the highest class eats fruits, the middle class becomes an official, and only the lowest class seeks the Tao. You came here seeking fish from a tree. The macaque heard that there were 3 classes of immortality. He had bitterly sought immortality for more than 10 years, but it was like the moon in the water or the flower in the mirror. Now that he asked, he was overjoyed. He kowtowed and asked, Teacher, please enlighten me. Chenong said, Go west to the 5th Manor Monastery of Longevity Mountain. There's an expert called Jin Yuanzi. His family has a ginseng fruit tree. If one is fated to obtain the fruit and smell it, they can live 360 years. If one eats it, they can live 47,000 years. High up in the sky, where the jade pool of the Queen Mother is, there are 3,600 immortal peach trees. In front, there are 1,200 immortal peach trees. The flowers and fruits are small and mature once every 3,000 years. If one eats them, he can become an immortal. In the middle, there are 1,200 immortal peach trees. They ripen once every 6,000 years. If one eats them, he can ascend and become immortal. At the back, there are 1,200 immortal peach trees. They have purple marks and fine seeds. They ripen once every 9,000 years. If one eats them, he can live as long as heaven and earth. There's also the zoysia horse immortal grass and fleeceflower ginseng. They can prolong one's life. If one eats them, they can become immortals. The macaque was fascinated. For a moment, he couldn't control himself. The macaque liked to eat peaches. How could he hold himself back after hearing such a good thing? He hurriedly asked, Teacher, can you tell me, how can I eat the immortal peach? About this, Chen Ong hesitated. Normal people can't eat it, can't eat it. You have to wait for the celestial heavens celebration, when the Queen Mother Jade Emperor invites the immortals of the 9 heavens and 10 lands to hold the immortal peach sacred meeting. It's not something normal people can eat. Only immortals can eat it. That's why I said, after a middle-class official registers as an immortal, not only can he ascend and become immortal, he can also participate in the immortal peach feast. If he's lucky enough to eat a peach, what's the point of learning? His lifespan will be the same as the heavens. The macaque was confused. He counted with his fingers. Only immortals can eat the immortal peach, but aren't immortals immortal? If I want to eat the immortal peach, I have to become an immortal. But if I become an immortal, why would I still eat the immortal peach? Those immortals are immortal. They eat the immortal peach. Old immortal, you're making me confused. What's there to be confused about? Chen Ong calculated for him. It's like a mortal. If he wants to become an official, he first needs an official to recommend him. If he has an official's recommendation, he would already be an official. It's you people who have nothing to do with being an official. Immortals don't need to eat the immortal peach. Those who need to eat the immortal peach can't eat it. The macaque flew into a rage. He scolded, "What a bastard of immortals! They're all immortal, and they're still fighting with us for the immortal peach. Old immortal, where is the 5th Manor Temple? What are you going there for?" Chen Ong asked, "Are you going to ask for a ginseng fruit to eat?" The macaque nodded and said, "The sky is so high that I can't see the bottom, and the Jasper Lake is so high that I don't have the ability to go there. The 5th Manor Monastery is closer. If that great deity Jin Yuan is a kind person, I'll ask him for a ginseng fruit to eat. If he's like those immortals, I'll steal one. If I can steal 2, I'll give you half." Chen Ong said with a smile, "Do you know how powerful Xinyuanzi is? You want to steal his ginseng fruit to eat? Let me tell you how to become an official." Chen Ong said, 3 tribulations and 9 tribulations. Let's not talk about him. This is heaven and earth coming to kill you. Just talking about becoming an official in the Celestial Court's Spirited Mountain, there will be countless tribulations. For those with lower ranks, there will be hundreds of tribulations. For those with higher ranks, there will be millions of tribulations. That would require an immeasurable amount of tribulations, the hacking of sabers and axes, the bombardment of lightning, and the burning of fire. It's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The macaque was so frightened that he held his breath and asked in horror, "Do all the immortals in the celestial heavens cultivate like this? How can there be so many immortals with such suffering?" "That's not it," Chen Ong said with a smile. "How can anyone become an immortal with such suffering? Of course they buy and sell positions, curry favor, get help from friends and family, or wait for immortals to admire you and help you become immortals. There are also the kind people in the human world. After reincarnating into the celestial Tao, they will become immortals in the celestial heavens. If they're lucky enough to serve an immortal, they will reach out and help you, and you can become an immortal too. There are also people who kill and set fires, become demons, train demon soldiers, form camps, and patrol the mountains. After gathering in the forest, they will wait for the immortals in the heavens to come and recruit you. In order to calm the situation, they will give you a small official position, and you will become an immortal or a Buddha, an official or a general." Looking at the dumbfounded monkey, Chen Ong shook his head and said, "You can't do this. Even if you're lucky enough to become an immortal, you will offend your colleagues, be framed, or violate the heavenly rules. You will only end up walking on the immortal slaying platform. It is better to go to the human world and train for tens of years. I see that you have more than half of your lifespan left. Go to the human world and be an official for 100 years. Settle the various dojos of the celestial heavens in the human world, and then find a chance to go up." 2 of the monkey's 3 souls had left, and 3 of its 6 spirits had scattered. After listening to Chen Ong talk about the celestial heavens' official matters, it unknowingly followed him to the mountain. From afar, it saw a cave abode with the aura of an immortal. It was extraordinary, and on its left was a stone tablet with the words, "Mount Lingtai Fongsuan, Cave of Slanting Moon, and 3 stars. The monkey knew that they had reached the place, but it wasn't very happy. It saw a boy standing at the entrance of the cave abode, but it didn't rush over. Instead, it grabbed onto Chunang's clothes and asked, "This boy is handsome and extraordinary, and he has accompanied the immortals. Can he become an immortal?" Chunang looked straight at the boy and divined his past and present lives, seeing through his internal organs. He shook his head and said, "He hasn't shed his mortal bones. In the future, he will only be a Taoist with some abilities. He won't be able to become an immortal." The macaque rushed over and asked, "You are disturbing the celestial boy." The boy said seriously, "Are you the one who came to visit the Tao? Why did you make me wait for so long? Quickly come with me to meet the patriarch." The macaque apologized. "I'm here to learn the art of immortality. May I ask the celestial boy, can you become an immortal?" Chapter 831. Don't panic, don't panic. After the monkey heard the words, it wasn't as respectful towards the boy anymore. It shot towards Chunang's side and immediately bowed. "Ancestor, please give me some pointers. I'm a stone monkey born from the heavens and without any parents. Do I have any hope of attaining enlightenment?" Chunang closed his eyes and raised his head, not saying a word. The ruffian monkey begged, and Chunang sighed. "I thought you were smart. Since I didn't say anything, it means that it's as hard as ascending to the heavens. You're just a wild monkey with no background and have never made friends with heroes from all over the world. You're not a guest of the Dragon Palace and have no fate with heavenly troops and generals. You're not familiar with Xianzhen from the 3 mountains grotto heavens, and the star lords and constellations in the heavens aren't close to you. You've never burned your fingers to worship Buddha. In your past life and this life, there aren't any deities that can be related to you. Go away, go away. With such a background, how can I attain enlightenment and become a deity? Why don't you learn some skills and gather in the forest, raise flags and rebel, waiting for the recruitment?" The ruffian monkey cried out 3 times, like the cry of an ape. After crying, it pulled its sleeves to wipe its tears and asked, "I'm not fated to obtain such a high-grade art of longevity. I can only fight for my own birth and seek for a low-grade art of longevity. I would like to ask, Patriarch, how should this disciple obtain the most inferior technique of immortality?" Chunang calculated with his fingers and said with a smile, "This is a low-level art of longevity, but it's the easiest to cultivate. I'll let you know that in the vast world of the 3 mountains and 5 peaks, there are many demons who have cultivated the art of longevity. It's nothing more than a small Tao of breathing in and out the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and worshiping the essence of the sun and moon. You can wander in the wild and seek refuge with a big demon who has matured." The monkey bowed. "Can such a low-grade art of longevity lead to longevity?" Chunang sighed softly. "It's like the soil in the kiln. It looks good, but it can't withstand the wind and rain." The monkey scratched its ears and asked, "How can it be like the soil in the kiln? Longevity, year. However, as long as a living being matured, it would defy the common sense of life and death. Every 500 years, heaven and earth would come to kill you. In the first 500 years, the heavens would send down a lightning disaster to strike you. You had to know your own nature and heart and avoid it in advance. If you could avoid it, you would be free for another 500 years. If you couldn't avoid it, you would die. After another 500 years, the heavens would send fire to burn you. This is not an ordinary fire. It's not a yang fire. It's a yin fire that cuts through the bones and scatters the soul. It's a yin fire that can burn your internal organs into ashes. It's burning from your Yongquan acupoint. It's burning straight through your Ni Yuan Gong. It's dangerous, very dangerous. After dodging this second calamity, there's still 500 years to go. A gust of cold wind will blow from the fontanelle into the 6 organs, pass through the dantian, and penetrate the 9 orifices. The bones and flesh will be thinned, and the body will know it. These 3 calamities are difficult to deal with. In a mortal world, you've often heard of a lightning strike from a clear sky, killing the strange beasts in the mountains. That was the demon that couldn't avoid the 3 calamities. Her painstaking cultivation turned into ashes, and all her abilities turned into dust. In other words, the demon's art of longevity is like the soil of a kiln. It looks like that, but when the wind and rain poured on it, it would turn into mud, and there would be no results. When the monkey heard about the 3 calamities, he was so frightened that his heart trembled. He begged, "Teacher, how can you bear to see your disciple without results? Longevity, I don't want to cultivate it. I don't want to cultivate it. Please teach me how to avoid the calamities and achieve longevity, so that I can avoid the 3 calamities and have a chance to achieve enlightenment. I also know how to avoid the 3 calamities." Chenong was worried and said softly, "Why are you begging me? Look at that celestial child. He has received Su Puti's decree and is waiting for you at the door. You can tell that Su Puti has the heart to help you." His family had their own art of transformation. One transformation was equivalent to 1 life. The 36 heavenly spirits were equivalent to 36 lives. The 72 earthly fiends were equivalent to 72 lives. How many lives could the 3 calamities harm? What can I do? The monkey was stunned. It turned its head to look at the boy, only to see the boy frowning. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction as he thought to himself, "Bitter, I haven't even entered the sect yet, and I've already offended senior brother. What should I do?" The monkey first looked at Chun Ang's expression, only to see that Chun Ang's expression was as calm as still water. There was no expression on his face. The stone monkey was born with innate intelligence. When it first entered the world, it had gone through many trials and tribulations. Its intelligence was still not as unruly and arrogant as it would be in the future. It naturally knew what was good and what was bad. When it saw Chun Ang's expression, it suddenly felt enlightened. It bowed and said, "There's no need to beg 2 masters for the same thing. That patriarch Subhoodie is extremely powerful and has the Tao of immortals. When did he ever guide me? Patriarch's teachings are pure, and he is naturally an expert. Why should I give up what's near and seek what's far away? Patriarch, please be merciful and guide this disciple." Chun Ong smiled and said, "You shameless monkey, do you know how great an opportunity you've missed out on? Patriarch Subhoodie has over 3,000 disciples, but only a few of them have received his teachings. Now that he has sent people to take you in, you'll definitely be entrusted with his teachings in the future. You've already gained his favor. If I block his door again, it'll be like I'm intercepting his disciple. I'll feel really embarrassed. This Patriarch Subhoodie is also one of the top experts in the 3 realms. It's just that he doesn't want to reveal his background. If you go to his place, you'll be able to learn great abilities. Although he definitely won't allow you to reveal your background, it'll still be an incredible opportunity if you don't have a good relationship with him. Let me make things clear. Think about it carefully, lest you regret it in the future and make me look bad." The stone monkey was extremely quick-witted. Hesitation was a great taboo for cultivators. He refused to follow the child and had already offended Patriarch Subhoodie. Now that he had lost his sense of responsibility, who would be willing to guide such a disciple? He immediately said, "I'm not going to repent. I'm not going to repent. Teacher, please take me in." A faint sigh rang out from the cave of Crescent 3 stars. A golden light flew out, and Chenong caught it. It was a golden Bodhi seed. He smiled and said, "This monkey is really lucky. Although you've abandoned Subhoodie, he took pity on your aptitude and gave you the Bodhi seed. Poor me, I've offended my neighbor and don't have the face to continue staying in this Lingtai, Fongsuan Mountain." After saying that, he gave the Bodhi seed to the stone monkey. He then said, "I've obtained the art of longevity and have a few techniques to tell you. You'll be able to differentiate them yourself. You naturally don't want to learn the art of absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. I'm also proficient in the art of transformation, but there are only 9 transformations. I don't take the form of animals, only the changes of the universe. The Tao has the 5 grand of Khanate. Taking the number as 5, I'll take the 9 and give you 9 lives." The stone monkey said, "I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn." Chun Ong reminded it, "Slow down. I haven't finished speaking and you've already answered. Do you know that there are hidden dangers that I haven't told you? The stone monkey didn't dare to snatch it away and listened quietly to Chenong. Although this art of transformation can avoid the three calamities, it's a legal longevity and there are endless hidden dangers. The monkey said in surprise, Patriarch, I'm an honest monkey. I don't understand the saying in the city. What is a legal longevity? Chapter 832. The 100 Monkey didn't expect such a thing to happen. He scratched his ears and said, Ancestor, do you have a solution? There are so many demons in this world, each of them hundreds and thousands of years old. Didn't you see King of Hell looking for trouble with them? That's because those demons defeated the ghost messengers and chased away the black and white impermanents. They're all powerful, so how would the ghost messengers dare to send people to capture them? Furthermore, there are also connections in the world of demons. Even the King of Hell can't afford to offend those old demons who call themselves saints and ancestors. If they were to get angry, the earth would shake and the mountains would shake. No emissary of hell would dare to take the lives of the demon armies and demon kingdoms under their protection. 10,000 miles to the west, there is the Lion Camel Country. It is 800 miles wide and has 48,000 demons. With the protection of the great demons, Yinjun won't dare to kill them, and the gods won't dare to subdue the demons. Although it's a legal immortality, it's still very carefree. The stone monkey yearned and asked, This illegal immortality sounds good. May I ask, Ancestor, what are the hidden dangers? Ha ha! Chenong laughed and said, If that's the case, they will really be demons. What do you think is a demon? Those who go against the celestial heavens, don't follow the spiritual mountain, and go against the laws of the gods are demons. Who cares if you're a human, ghost, monkey, ox, lion, rock, flood dragon, or leopard? As long as you have celestial record, you will be able to follow the spiritual mountain of the celestial heavens and enter the divine Tao system. If you don't enter the system and go against the celestial heavens, you will be a demon. Do you really think that no one will come to slay the demons? The celestial heavens will launch a calamity to slay the demons. When the time comes, they will gather millions of troops and the sky will be filled with gods. If they beat the young ones, the old ones will come. If they beat the celestial generals, the star lords will come. After chasing the star lords away, the Bodhisattva will come. Behind the Bodhisattva, there will be Buddha. The celestial heavens and spiritual mountain will collude together. No matter how arrogant the demons are, can they push down the Buddha's lotus seat? Therefore, don't look at the demons making a ruckus. In the future, when the heavenly courts pull out a list, all of them will suffer a calamity or be taken in as mounts and pets. This is another wonderful thing about enlisting them. The monkey was dumbfounded and said, These demons, aren't they because they eat humans? Huh. Chenong smiled again and said, Although demons that don't eat humans are rare, it's not like they don't exist. Many demons either have righteous intentions or have a pure nature, so they don't eat humans to do evil. But if they want to live forever, they have to chase away and avoid the messengers of hell. If they avoid the messengers of hell, they are demons. What's more, don't be fooled by the solemn, dignified, and well-respected deities of today. Before they became immortals, did they not eat humans? In the West, Mahamayuri could eat 100,000 people in a country with a single mouth. In this world, how many monsters could be as savage as him? Those who have immortal records are immortals. Those who don't have immortal records and still oppose the heavenly court's spirited mountain are demons. Of course, when you become a deity, you have to be restrained by the laws of heaven. You can't eat humans anymore. The stone monkey said dejectedly, I can't become a deity. Could it be that everyone in this world who wants to live forever has to become a demon? How many of the cultivators in the world are there in terms of wisdom? They were able to create a way to evade the three disasters, much less evade the book of life and death. This is another way to live forever. Chenong said, It's called the undead immortal. Any human cultivator who hasn't obtained an immortal record before the end of their lifespan and doesn't want to reincarnate lest they turn into dust after cultivating for a lifetime must cultivate the undead immortal method. Refine your own soul into a godlike spirit and call it the primordial spirit. Calculate a good date and wait until the ghost messenger comes, either by using fellow Taoists to fight or by using the calamity of heaven and earth. You can escape without anyone noticing. Leave the corpse there. If the ghost messenger sees it, they will think that the person's soul has dissipated. Go back and report. Let the judge write off the name. Then, when you come back, you can either enter the corpse again or take over the corpse. You can borrow the staff, clothes, and sword to escape. From then on, you won't have a name in the book of life and death and will be called an undead immortal, also known as an itinerant immortal. After becoming an itinerant immortal, you can go to the 3 mountains and 5 mountains where the itinerant immortals gather to continue cultivating and live in seclusion. When you have the opportunity to find 2 or 3 good friends in the heavenly court, you will receive enlightenment and enter the immortal record. This is a good idea. This is a good idea. The stone monkey scratched his ears and cheeks, unable to contain his joy. If you can't enter the immortal record, you will eventually turn into dust. What's so good about that? Shen Eng's expression darkened. You see itinerant immortals living freely in the world, but they are actually just stray dogs. They live in the shadow of the heavenly court and have to suck up to the immortals, begging them to help them in the future. They even hide their heads and show their tails, afraid that they will be noticed by the heavenly court. When the great tribulation comes, have you not turned into dust among the itinerant immortals? Of course, the cultivators in the human world are no longer like the itinerant immortals of the past who have no backing. The seniors before them became immortals and ancestors and also had connections in the heavenly court. The 4 great heavenly masters are their backers in the heavenly court. They just have to wait for the heavenly court's establishment. When the time comes, they can become immortals with a heavenly decree. Although such itinerant immortals can still be called itinerant immortals, they're actually preparatory immortals for the heavenly court. Even the king of hell won't find trouble with them. They just have to hide in their grotto heavens and don't need to be dismembered. They can just wait to become immortals. Such itinerant immortals with connections have their legacies orderly, forming their own sects and calling themselves righteous sections. They disdain to be mentioned in the same breath as the itinerant immortals of the 3 mountains and 5 peaks overseas. These people who are preparing for the immortal record gradually stopped being called itinerant immortals. Later on, the itinerant immortals took on human characters and called them human immortals. They are also considered as part of the 5 immortal fruits. The stone monkey was flabbergasted and stuttered. This disciple didn't know that there was such a thing. Teacher, what exactly is the 5 immortal fruits that you speak of? How many of them are there in the world? There are only 5 of them in the world. They aren't cultivation, divine arts, or magical powers, but establishment. They are commonly known as official positions. There are 5 immortals in the heavenly cycle. They are heaven, earth, God, human, and ghost. I've told you before that human immortals are merely preparatory immortals. In that case, the other 4 immortals have something to say. Heavenly immortals and divine immortals are all immortals of the heavenly heavens. It's just that their positions are different. Those who are in charge of running the world are divine immortals, such as the dragon kings of the 4 seas and the various star sovereigns. And the ones under Yin, Jun in the netherworld are ghost immortals. As for the earth spirit, it's Zenyuanzi from the 5-manor monastery on the Longevity Mountain. His seniority is high, and he's in the earth spirit tree. He's not an immortal of the heavenly heavens, but he can protect people for longevity. It's not easy for the Jade Emperor to manage him, so he can only confer an earth spirit ancestor. Those earth spirits who are under Zenyuanzi's protection can enter the heaven and earth treasure mirror and obtain the earth spirit book. They will be known as earth immortals. They will be the most carefree and carefree, but they have to mind their own business. The stone monkey bowed and said, "This disciple heard that the Gautama Buddha from the Western Paradise leads all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and Vajras. He's also an extremely good righteous fruit. Why doesn't he become one of the 5 immortals?" Why doesn't he become one of the 5 immortals? Chunong smiled and said, "Don't forget that those human immortals are just immortals to make up the numbers. How can they be considered as righteous fruits? I'll let you know that the Western Paradise's mystical mountain also has a line of immortals. They're called the Daiju, Golden Immortal, and you could just call them Golden Immortals. There are actually 6 types of 5 immortals in the heavenly cycle, and they're the great Tao of heaven and earth. It's just that the Golden Immortal line isn't under the Jade Emperor's control. Therefore, he didn't mention it and didn't want to embarrass him. That's why he mentioned the preparatory immortals as well, to make up for the title of human immortal." The stone monkey thought about these 5 righteous fruits and gradually became a little infatuated. After a long time, he said in a sorrowful voice, "We're born and raised by the heavens. We have no one to rely on. It's so difficult to achieve righteous fruits." He almost cried. He kowtowed to Chunong and said, "Teacher, thank you for enlightening me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to find righteous fruits even after searching for 100 years." Chunong sighed and said, "Foolish child, longevity is easy to obtain, but righteous fruits are hard to seek. That's all. I've heard that an elder of the celestial heavens, Taishang Laojun, descended to the mortal world over 80 years ago. He's now under the Emperor of Great Zhou as the administrator of the treasure vault. He's one of the few great virtues in the mortal world. His status in the celestial heavens is extraordinary. If you want to obtain righteous fruits, there's no other option other than him. If you only want to obtain righteous fruits, then go kill and commit arson to be conscripted. I've caused you to offend Subhoodie and ruined your future. I'll return you an opportunity. Follow me to meet that old man. I'll ask for a favor from fellow Taoist Grand Pure. I won't let you have no righteous fruits." The stone monkey prostrated on the ground and didn't get up. He said in a sorrowful voice, "Teacher has treated me with great kindness. Why are you chasing me away? Ever since I was born, I've only known about life and death. I've only understood good and evil after going through trials and tribulations. Only after meeting Teacher today did I understand my future. I'm only willing to be a good-for-nothing disciple under Teacher. Other than Teacher, I don't know anyone else. You don't know fellow Taoist Grand Pure's remarkable abilities. This world is your parents, and fellow Taoist Grand Pure is like your parents. How can the kindness of a moment's guidance surpass the virtue of creation? You're still ignorant now, saying such foolish things. In the future, when you understand, you'll come to blame me. Get up." Chunong waved his sleeves and wrapped the stone monkey up, rising up into the sky and heading toward Luoyang. Chapter 833. In the 4th year of King Jing of Zhou, there was a civil war in Luo-Yi. Luo-Yi was also called Luoyang because it was located on the Luo River. In the 20th year of King Jing of Zhou, King Jing of Zhou wanted to appoint his eldest son, Prince Zichao. However, he failed, and the people of Zhou elected King Morning. In the same year, Prince Zichao killed King Morning and established himself. In the 1st year of King Jing of Zhou, Jin supported Prince Zichao as King Jing. In the 4th year of King Jing of Zhou, Jin led its vassals to support King Jing into the capital of the Chu Kingdom. In the same year, Laozi left Luo-Yi with the books in the treasure room. Since the Zhou dynasty lost to Prince Zichao, Laozi did not have to return. Confucius wanted to offer the books to the Zhou dynasty. His disciple Zilu said, "I heard that there was an old man in the history of the Zhou dynasty who did not have to return." Confucius said, "Good. You want to see Lao Dan again." In the autumn of the 4th year of King Jing of Zhou, Chunong went to Luo-Yi with the stone monkey. The macaque followed Chunong all the way down to Luo-Yi on a cloud. Along the way, he saw the vassals fighting and killing each other. The further they went to Luo-Yi, the more desolate the surroundings became. There were broken walls, broken well railings, broken paths, barren fields, and withered grass. Humans looked like apes. They wore clothes and looked like themselves. Gradually, they felt sad and compassionate. On the other hand, Chunong rode on the clouds, climbing over mountains and crossing rivers. Even though the Nanjan section state was extremely vast, Chun Ong managed to cover the path that the macaque had taken years to cover in one day and night. By the time the next day turned dark, he had already reached the outskirts of Luoyi City. At this time, the chaos in the imperial court had just ended, and the traces of war outside Luoyi City had yet to subside. White bones were everywhere, and the fields were barren. Chun Ong was dressed in Taoist robes and entered the city. Surprisingly, no one stopped him. The macaque was wearing clothes and followed behind him like a human. After Chun Ong entered the city, he paused for a moment and looked up at the sky. Then, he headed straight for a place in the city. The macaque was puzzled and asked, "How do you know where Lao Dan is in the wilderness?" Looking at the qi in Luo Yi, the east is the most expensive. Two streams of purple qi interweave and rise 30,000 miles high. One is meandering like a dragon, and the other is entrenched like a unicorn. The dragon's head is supported by the white clouds. It can be seen that the saint has white hair and looks like an old man. The Qilin sits on the east side of the Su and Wei, two constellations, entrenched on the boundary between Kuei and Lu. The Xianqi and Jiang Lu, two stars, are in front. It must be born from Lu and came from Qi. I've heard that Confucius, the great sage, was born in Lu state and traveled to Qi state. He was born with an old face, and his hair has turned white. The place where the purple air is occupying must be the place where Confucius sought enlightenment from Lao Dan. It's a good chance for you, a macaque. Why don't you quickly follow me there? The macaque was overjoyed and jumped forward to lead the way. At this moment, a bearded man beside him bowed and said, "Sage, please wait. I'm Zi Lu, a disciple of the headmaster. I've just heard that you're a sage in astronomy, and you're good at observing the qi. You must be a sage in the world. I'd like to introduce you to the headmaster." With Zi Lu leading the way, Chenong took the stone monkey and went straight to the place where Lao Dan lived. Along the way, Zi Lu consulted Chenong several times and learned that Chenong knew everything about astronomy and geography, as well as the languages of various countries. Thus, he respected Chun Ong even more. When they arrived outside the thatched cottage, he first apologized to Chenong and then went into the thatched cottage to invite the two saints out. Chenong did not stand there for long. The monkey was not a stable person. Fortunately, he was well-mannered now and restrained himself reluctantly. However, the monkey's nature did not change. It was inevitable that he winked at Chenong. After a while, someone came out of the thatched cottage. The one walking in front was a handsome old man with a mysterious appearance. He had yellow and white hair, long eyebrows, long ears, big eyes, sparse teeth, square mouth, and thick lips. Behind him was a middle-aged man. His head was on the top of the polder, and he was taller than ordinary people. Zilu followed behind the two of them like a disciple. Rarely, Chenong first went forward and bowed respectfully. "I, Chenong, pay my respects to the two great sages, Lao Dan and Confucius." He then bowed to Lao Dan and said, "Greetings, immortal Tai Ching." The macaque followed behind. He was enlightened and also bowed to Lao Dan. Confucius' clothes were neat and tidy. He returned the greeting as well. Lao Dan only nodded his head and smiled, showing the difference in their temperament. After the three of them entered the thatched cottage, the macaque secretly asked, when teacher met Patriarch Subhoodie, he didn't show any courtesy and spoke with disdain. Why did he bow to these two mortals today? Why did he bow to Lao Dan first and then half a bow to them? Subhoodie is just my junior. How can he be worthy of my bow? Chenong smiled and said, "He's just a righteous person who has some affinity with the same Tao. I'll bow to Lao Dan twice. First, I'll pay respect to Lao Dan. Then, I'll pay respect to Tai Ching. Since immortal Tai Ching is my sage, he naturally deserves my bow. Although immortal Tai Ching is great, he's just a fellow Tao practitioner. He's not worthy of my bow yet. I can only pay him half a bow." Of course, the stone monkey did not know that the first half of the bow was performed by Chenong, a Han Chinese. He was paying respect to the sages. The second half of the bow was performed by Chun Ong on behalf of Cult Master Chun. Cult Master Chun and Immortal Tai Ching were the same Tao practitioners. It was only because he came to the world created by Immortal Tai Ching that he paid respect to Chunong as his master. Lao Dan only nodded his head because he did not treat Chunong as cult master Chun. Although it was already late that day, the three of them still sat down and discussed Tao. They talked for a while until the oil lamp was dim and it was difficult for them to walk. The three of them discussed Tao for 3 days. When they were thirsty, Zilu fetched spring water from the ancient well in the city. When they were hungry, the macaque went to pick wild fruits nearby. Together with Zilu, they cooked the corn for Lao Dan's thatched hut and the cured meat brought by Kong Xiao. The macaque had a hard time. He had to clean the thatched hut, carry water, and pulp with Zilu, start a fire and cook with Zilu. He also had to study and practice calligraphy with Zilu and listen to the teachings of Lao Dan, Kong Xiao, and Chenong. Among the three of them, one had no self, one had no divine power, and the last was a nameless sage. Among the three of them, Lao Dan, Kong Xiao, and Chenong, which one of them wasn't the wisest person in this world? One was a Taoist Daozu, the other was a Confucian master, and the last one used civilization as a chessboard. He wrote in his heart and experimented with the development of civilization. His behavior was insane, but the wisdom that he gained from this could be said to be profound and perfect. There was nothing fake about it. When they talked about the way of governing a country, Zilu was fascinated. When they talked about morality and etiquette, Zilu was so excited that he forgot himself. Although the macaque was listening to the most exquisite theories of the three religions, he was confused most of the time because he didn't know the human way. Only when the three of them talked about the heaven and earth, the universe, the creation of nature, and the Tao of all things, he could understand the beauty of it and was overjoyed. He was a psychic stone monkey, so his intelligence and comprehension were indeed excellent. However, he couldn't change his monkey nature, which delayed him from becoming a talent that carried the Tao. Although Kong Xiao was a sage, he spent most of his energy on the human way. He was not as knowledgeable as Lao Dan, the incarnation of the Tai Ching Jinren, who created the heaven and earth. Not to mention Chenong, whose incarnations were either the celestial cult leader, the god of gods, or the seekers of natural science, who were insane. Later on, he talked less and listened more. He had another kind of wisdom. Although the stone monkey did not understand much about the human way, he learned from Kong Xiao to be like a human, Lao Dan to be as merciful as a god, and Chenang's bestial nature had yet to be shed, which added to his demonic nature. On the surface, he was a man who knew etiquette and was a talent that carried the Tao. However, he was rebellious inside and had a demonic nature that disregarded everything. As the saying goes, gods, demons, humans, and monkeys are all me, and I'm not the Monkey King. One day, Tai Ching Jinren saw the macaque sweeping outside the door and suddenly called it in. The stone monkey knelt on the ground, only to hear Tai Ching Jinren saying, "I have some fate with you. I've already understood Chun Daoyo's intention. Let me ask you, what's your surname?" The macaque raised its head and said hesitantly, "I'm a monkey raised by the heavens. How can I have a name? I only hope that teacher will reward me with a name when you see me being diligent and alert." After saying that, it looked at Chun Ong eagerly. Chun Ong secretly shook his head and said angrily, "Why are you looking at me? I've already said that the person in front of you is half apparent to you. Why can't your surname be Sun?" The macaque's expression changed drastically. "Are you saying that I'm old? I'm still a little monkey, and I only want to live forever. If I have this surname, when people call me king, they will add the word old and become old king. When they call me monkey macaque, I will become old monkey, old macaque. My seniority is 1 generation higher than mine. Won't my children laugh at me if I go out to sea to learn the art of immortality? It's an inauspicious sign." Tai Ching Jinren smiled and said, "Since you don't want your surname to be old, and you want to live forever, then your surname shall be Sun." Chapter 834. After the stone monkey received its name, it was elated and excited. It first bowed to Chin Ong to express its gratitude, then paid its respects to Reverend Tai Ching. The saints of the three sects discussed the Tao for 10 days. The Monkey King learned etiquette and ethics from Confucius. After listening to Laozi, it also learned about morality and inaction. In the end, it was imparted by Chuanong and understood the natural sciences. It was really a great opportunity. Before the saints of the three sects, it was half a monkey and half a celestial. It had learned language and manners from Zilu, learned how to write and reason, and studied diligently every day. Every day, when it was free, it swept the floor, weeded, looked for firewood to light a fire, carried pulp to boil water, and took care of the cowshed behind the thatched hut. Everything that the three sages needed was prepared. Every time the three saints started to talk, and Zilu would sit upright and still, listening to them. However, Kong Xiu came from a state of Qi to visit Lao Dan because Prince Yichao had coerced the Zhou clan to protect the treasure chamber. The imperial clan temple had surrendered to the Chu dynasty, causing the Zhou clan temple's imperial clan library to be lost. He wanted to offer the library to King Jing of Zhou to rebuild the treasure chamber. Unexpectedly, Lao Dan had offended King Jing due to the loss of the treasure chamber's imperial clan library. Thus, he was demoted to his hometown. Kong Xiu's trip did not go as he wished. After discussing Dao with Lao Dan and Shenong for a month, he returned to Lu. After listening to the teachings for a month, the Monkey King's intelligence and spirituality were vastly different from before. He and Zilu were companions and were already good friends. They sent Sage Kong Xiu off for tens of miles. One day, he brought the green ox to graze outside the city. Thinking about Zilu's return to Lu, the Monkey King's intellect increased. After listening to the teachings of the three sects, he already had some attainments in the Tao. This stone monkey was born in the Hotian era, and its divine abilities were truly extraordinary. It understood yin and yang, understood human affairs, could discern the future, knew the future, understood the myriad of things, and could avoid death and prolong life. It saw that Zilu was an upright and courageous person, and that every saint who achieved the Tao would have to face twists and turns and dangers. Somehow, it already knew that Zilu would face a calamity this time and would die a horrible death. It couldn't help but feel sad and wanted to cry. The Monkey King caressed the back of the green bull and lamented, Zilu, Zilu, there is no road anymore. This is a dangerous journey. Where will your soul go? He has his own good fortune, and he will definitely achieve positive results in his next life. These few days I heard Confucius say, if one hears the way in the morning, one can die in the past. Although Zhongyu is in trouble, his soul is still there, and he has a bright future ahead of him. His achievements in his past and future life will probably be above us, so why are you so sad? Afterlife? Wukong had no time to distinguish, so he answered casually. However, after a while, he came back to his senses and turned to look at the green ox. He saw that the green ox was also looking at him. Its eyes were like a human's, intelligent, and it even nodded and smiled at him. Wukong felt his hair stand on end. He took a step back and shouted, Monster! Where did this monster come from? You turned into old he's cow and scared me. The green bull was also angry and said, You are born with a hairy face, and you learn to wear clothes and speak with etiquette. You look down on others who are also wearing hair and horns. You are a stone monkey in front of Sage Chenong, and I am also a Tai primordial spirit under Old Lord Lao Jun, the plate-horn green bull. We are both of different races, and I thought you were a loyal person, but who knew that you looked down on me? Wukong came back to his senses and knew that he had said the wrong thing. He bowed and said fawningly, Old brother, you usually keep your mouth shut, but your actions are the same as Chong Yo's. How can I tell? I said something unpleasant just now and offended you. Please forgive me, Brother Bull. The green bull calmed down and said, Mortals are ignorant. Grandpa Lao Jun is staying here, so how would I dare to cause trouble for him? It's also because you and I are alone today, and we're both different races with hair and horns that I spoke to you. If you are in front of mortals, don't talk to me. I don't want to offend Old Lord and attract trouble. You are also lucky. I have heard about Old Lord Chenong before. He is an incarnation of the immeasurable Heavenly Lord. When Grandpa Lao Jun created the world, The Jade Clear and Prime Clear Masters were unwilling to descend. Before Old Lord's 1 Chi turning into 3 Clear, he had the intention to invite the immeasurable Heavenly Lord to occupy the position of the Jade Clear Primordial Beginning. However, the immeasurable Heavenly Lord declined, so he gave up. Now that Old Master has lost his position as the keeper of the treasure trove, he originally wanted to head west to the Hanga Pass. However, when he saw the Qilin coming from the east and the Phoenix flying south, he knew that 2 saints had come to visit, so he stayed behind. Now, that cult master Kong Xiu is going east, and the immeasurable Heavenly Lord has invited him. He is about to leave Hanga Pass. Since you are fortunate enough to be under the immeasurable Heavenly Lord and cult master Chenong, why don't you pack your luggage and prepare a carriage for me to carry the 2 saints to the west? When the Monkey King heard that the Green Ox had leaked the secret and had a glimpse of his master's background, he was overjoyed. He scratched his ears and cheeks and said, "I didn't expect Teacher to have such a background. Thank you for telling me, brother. Ever since I became his disciple, I have been ignorant and did not know how powerful he was. Now that I have received Brother Ox's guidance, I know that I am lucky and have a good future. Otherwise, I would have unintentionally offended the Ancestral Master. Thank you. Thank you." Seeing that the Green Ox had eaten its fill of grass, it hurriedly pulled the rope and accompanied the ox back. When it entered the thatched hut, it heard Chunong call out, "Monkey King, come here." The stone monkey came to Chunong and listened to his instructions. The Grand Pure One has the intention to go west and turn into a Buddha. I plan to bring you along and listen to the teachings of the Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue. However, the Grand Pure One only has 1 green ox, and you have the body of a macaque. Although the green ox has great strength, its back is narrow, and it can't carry many people. When I was a sect master of the Rogue Immortals overseas, I had a golden boat. It can be made into a carriage after some modifications. Go and carry the green ox on the carriage. After that, Chenong took out the golden boat of fate from his sleeve and threw it on the ground. It turned into a bronze carriage. The Monkey King led the green ox over, packed their luggage, and drove the carriage to the west. Chenong and Lao Dan sat in the carriage together. The green ox pulled the ox to the Hanga Pass. The Monkey King walked in front and led the green ox. Outside of Rodu, in the vast wilderness, a bronze ox carriage was slowly moving to the west. A macaque was pulling the carriage in front, and 2 sages were sitting at the back. It slowly disappeared into the horizon. On the ox carriage, Chunong and Tai Ching Jinren sat opposite each other and discussed Taoism. Since Kong Xiu had already gone to the east, the 2 of them resumed their status as immortals and Buddhas. They talked about Taoism, the nature of heaven and earth, the truth of Taoism, and magic arts. They no longer talked about the way of ruling a country and human relationships. This time, Tai Ching Jinren talked about the opening of yin and yang and the separation of pure and turbid. On the other side, Chunong talked about the explosion of the universe and the mysteries of dimensional folds. When Tai Ching Jinren talked about the operation of the qi of the sun, Chunong talked about the fusion and fission of matter and the ignition of the stars. The Tai Ching sage enlightened the vitality and created a world. Chun Ong collapsed the dimension and integrated the information into the universe. The 2 of them expressed their views, which made the green ox in front of the carriage and the Monkey King, who was leading the way with the rope, fascinated and beaming with joy. After obtaining the truth of Taoism, magic arts and magic arts were just a piece of cake. The Monkey King listened and was excited. He took out the fresh fruits and vegetables that he brought and threw them to the side of the road. He enlightened them with his vitality and produced fruit trees and melon vines. He plucked the fruits and offered them to the 2 sages. Then he waved his hand and scattered grass to form a plain. The green ox was herded on the plain. The long journey was slow. After 3 to 5 months, they were already close to the Hanga Pass. The Hanga Pass's passmaster was called Ishi. He had studied ancient books since he was young and was proficient in calendars. He was good at observing astronomy and practicing astrology. He could know the past and see the future. Today, he suddenly felt something and went up to the building to look at the east. His expression changed greatly, and he said to his left and right, "I see that the purple chi in the east is flowing in the west. The sky is auspicious. The purple chi is spreading for 30,000 miles. The saints must be coming from the east. All of you follow me to welcome them." Therefore, he bathed in the temple and fasted. He observed the stars day and night. The purple chi came from the east and appeared like dragons and phoenixes. He knew that there were two saints. One had white hair and long eyebrows, and he looked old. The other had a jade face and no beard, but he looked young. The two saints came in an ox carriage, and there was an ape leading the way. Chapter 835. First from afar, the Hangu Pass was surrounded by towering mountains and steep ridges on both sides. The road from the Tongwan Pass to the Hangu Pass was a narrow land between the mountains. The two passes were far more powerful than thousands of soldiers and horses. Since the Shang and Zhou dynasties, the Hangu Pass had been an important city in the world. From the Eastern Zhou dynasty to the Tang dynasty, the Hangu Pass started from the Shao Mountain in the west and ended at the Hulao Pass in the east. The Taiyang Pass was guarded by the Wangwu House. It was the barrier of the Central Plains, a gift from the heaven to the Yellow Emperor. The Hangu Pass was surrounded by a plateau in the west, a steep stream in the east, the Qinling Mountains in the south, and the Yellow River in the north. It was a great fortress in the valley. It was deep and dangerous, so it was called Hangu. Before Chenong arrived at the Hangu Pass, he saw the gate of the Hangu Pass opened. A tall and sturdy doctor with 3 strands of long beard walked out. When he saw Chenong and Lao Dan coming in a carriage from afar, he went forward and paid his respects. The Zhou dynasty was based on the etiquette and music. All the scholars and officials were proficient in this. The etiquette was not the polite greeting used by the later generations. Although she was only a doctor and did not dare to use the etiquette used by the feudal lords, he was very respectful. It was the etiquette used by a doctor to pay respects to the king of one. If Confucius was here, he would not accept it, but Laozi did. The Monkey King went forward and returned the etiquette according to the etiquette. He had studied with Zilu for 2 months and listened to Confucius's lectures. Therefore, he was very familiar with the etiquette and music system of the Zhou dynasty. He was not an ordinary stubborn monkey. When Ishi saw the Monkey King sitting in a well-dressed manner, he realized how extraordinary he was. Even a monkey leading a cow had the demeanor of a scholar and official. Ishi welcomed Chen Ong and Lao Dan into the pass and invited them into the official residence. That night, he came and asked them about it. He asked Laozi about the etiquette and music system. The feudal lords did not worship the Zhou dynasty. Seeing the world was in chaos, how were the doctors? Laozi told him about the principle of do nothing. He advocated the rule of the body and the state. The two natures were the foundation. Everything would follow the law, and everything would move according to it. He followed the law of the heaven and earth, and made all things natural. He even had to do it. He is good at teaching without words, so that people will naturally change. He also asked Chenong. Chenong told him about the survival of the fittest, avoiding harm with all one's life, valuing oneself above all else, not interacting with other things, not being tainted by their nature, not doing anything, not implicating each other, not disturbing each other. As soon as Chenong finished, he said to the crowd, "Everything in the world has already nurtured all living beings, and it also controls life and death. Those who are suitable will live. Those who are not will die. Therefore, we value ourselves. Animals eat their young, while insects devour their husbands. Rabbits and antelopes are good at running, while wolves and tigers have sharp claws and teeth. It's all because they want to avoid harm and value themselves. Those who don't value themselves will die. Everything takes after his father, and his nature is natural. If the father does not value himself, he dies. If the father values himself, he lives. Those who value themselves will have children, while those who value others will have no descendants. Therefore, all living things in the world value themselves. Plucking a hair to benefit the world, isn't it? Because you pluck a hair, and the world gains a hair. Harming yourself to benefit others, people will kill you, and the heavenly Tao will kill you. If you are not satisfied, you will die. Therefore, the heavenly Tao lies in utilitarianism. The growth of humans and the reproduction of all living beings lies in selfishness. The son is like his father, and this is inherited. Those who inherit it are selfish. Ishibai was intoxicated by Laozi's words and was full of praises. When he heard Chenang's words, he was terrified and shaken to the core. On the other hand, the Monkey King, the Green Bull, and the rest of the unusual species who had mingled among the animals saw life and death, and even heard the strong live and the weak die. Nature would naturally eliminate the strong, and heaven would select the strong. The principle of evolution of all living beings was intoxicated by Laozi's words. Ishibai asked Chenong, "That's what the saint said, but where are the morals?" Chenong smiled and said, "Listen to me. Heaven will select the suitable, not the strong. Tigers and wolves will also die, and cunning rabbits will also survive. Therefore, the path of heaven's selection is that the strong cannot defeat the weak, and the hard cannot defeat the soft. The soft but has the Tao and can naturally grow. The strong but has no Tao, and there will also be a time of extinction. The most important thing is to survive, followed by reproduction. Those who can survive but can't reproduce will die. Therefore, loving one's children is the first virtue, and the nature of all living beings is different. When gathered, they are strong. When scattered, they are weak. When gathered in a group, it is better than being alone. When wolves gather in the forest, they think that survival is better than a lone wolf running amok. This is also the principle of natural elimination. When a group of wolves is tyrannical, how can one win against a lone wolf? This path has a leader, the alpha wolf, who loves his children and the group. Therefore, in the clan, the most important thing is the group. When the group gathers, it is beneficial to the individual, and when the group is scattered, it is detrimental to the individual. If the clan is seen as one, then loving the clan is the same as loving oneself. Therefore, loving one's clan is the second virtue. Chenong was on a whim. With a raise of his hand, he talked about the path of vitality transforming into all living beings and the reproduction of bloodlines and inheritance. There were no atoms in this world, but vitality atoms were just one thing with two phases. Chenong only made some modifications. From the biological characteristics, the bones left behind, and even the appearance of the great ancient demon, he talked about the theory of evolution. He also deduced the ancient customs of this world and described the species. He talked about the evolution of species and the path of extinction. Later on, Ishi dared not to memorize the path. He only dared to record the ancient landforms and scenery described by Chenong, which was passed down to the later generations. It was known as the classic of mountains and seas. There was also a servant beside him who secretly recorded the principles that Chenong described. However, the servant did not know much about literature. Although he could understand the principles, he could not prove it. In the ancient times, he did not understand much about evolution. In the end, he only recorded the way of humanity and lost the way of nature. When the servant returned home, he taught his son Yang Zhu the way that Chenong taught. After hearing what Chenong said, Lao Dan nodded and said with a smile, "Good. Regard yourself as the world. If you can entrust yourself to the world. Regard yourself as the world. If you can entrust yourself to the world." Chenong also said that the heaven's way was constant, but all the laws were impermanent. Everything had the principle of movement, change, and development. It was said that when the heaven changed, things changed. In order to adapt to the changes of the heaven and earth, the principle of continuous evolution of species was combined with the idea of valuing oneself. In order to adapt to the changes of the heaven and earth, one must grasp the principle behind the movement and change of things and seek the Tao. This was called development. It was said that humans were different from all living things because of their wisdom. Wisdom could seek the Tao and seek change instead of the change of natural elimination. Humans were fickle, so they were better than all living things in the world. Humans could seek the Tao, so they valued all living things in the world. It was also said that when humans gathered in groups, they had the virtue of loving their children and the clan. However, they also had the nature of selfishness and self-love. The human clan valued themselves, and the individual valued themselves. Everyone's selfishness and self-love would harm the clan and themselves. Moreover, they were fickle with wisdom. Therefore, between the love of the individual and the love of the greater self, there were the evolution of the sexes, human desires, and morality. Among the people, if one became a criminal because of one's own value in a natural selection of the fittest, one would harm oneself. If one violated others, one would harm oneself the most. In the end, it was changed by wisdom, and a contract was made, and a consensus was reached, just like the collective consciousness of the crowd. This was morality. Morality was also the principle of valuing oneself. The Monkey King listened to Chun Ang's description of the evolution of the heavens and the path of development of humans. It was the principle of humans evolving from beasts to humans. The Monkey King was originally a stone monkey born by the heavens. He mingled among monkeys and was enlightened in the human kingdom. He received the teachings of the three saints, Lao Lao, Chun, and Confucius. He had seen the laws of nature, the laws of human civilization, and the teachings of morality. At this point, he finally understood human nature and understood that humans were also beasts. He used wisdom and morality to govern, no longer having a conflict with his bestial nature. He gradually understood the difference between wisdom and morality and the bestial nature of humans. He also came into contact with the Tao of all living things in the world. His knowledge was so high that it was rare to find someone like him in this world. From Chinong, he learned the demonic nature of selfishness, greed, ignorance, and anger. From Confucius, he learned human ethics and the human nature of killing. Finally, he learned the divine nature of Lao Tzu's tranquility and inaction. His cultivation was immeasurable. When Ishi first heard of Lao Tzu's teachings, he was completely intoxicated and wanted nothing more than to become Lao Tzu's disciple. Later on, when he heard Chun Ang's teachings, he felt an indescribable fear. In a daze, he didn't know how much of Lao Tzu's teachings had sunk in. In the end, when the lecture ended, he left in a hurry, even ignoring the rules of etiquette. Ishi stumbled back to the official residence. His wife saw that his face was deathly pale and he was panting heavily. She hurriedly stood up to give him some warm water and asked him what had happened. Ishi replied, "I've really heard the words of a saint today. Since they were the words of the saints, why did you do that?" Ishi waited for his mind to calm down before replying, "The words of the saints are profound and profound. Truth can even reach the Tao. If you understand the subtleties of the words, you will be enlightened. Therefore, the saints do not examine life and death, virtuous and unworthy, but examine the reason. The words of the saints and the heavenly Tao are extremely terrifying. I don't dare to listen to them. I don't dare to listen to them. Humans cannot be obtained. They are as indifferent as gods. Only today did I realize the Supreme Man has no self, the gods have no merit, and the saints have no name. These three are not humans." After Ishi left, Chunong said to Lao Tzu and the others, "From my observations, the people of the four major continents are good and evil. The people of the Dong Shang divine continent respect heaven and earth, worship immortals and gods, and have almost no self. Although they are pure, they're like trees that will rot in the wind and rain. The people of the northern Jilu continent fight for their lives with heaven and earth. For the sake of survival, they are clumsy and indifferent, and they learn from the Dharma like beasts. The people of the Aparagodinia continent are apathetic and content with the status quo. They're like puppets of immortals and Buddhas, livestock reared in captivity. Only the people of the South Zhan continent value themselves. They are fickle and flexible. They pursue the development of the Tao and are not obsessed with immortals and Buddhas. It is a world of great competition and a land of humanity. As the saying goes, the heavenly Tao is contested. Do not intrude on it. The morals of the other continents are the morals of the immortals and Buddhas. They seem to be enlightened by the immortals, but in reality, they are imprisoned. The slightest change will be strangled by divine punishment. Only the South Xian continent is the land of humanity. Morals are born from wisdom, and they develop and adapt to the changes of heaven and earth. I pity the people of the Aparagadania continent. Their social status is fixed, and humanity cannot develop. They are reared by the spiritual mountain and are no longer human. They are truly pitiful. The Buddhas use the pure land of ultimate bliss to bewitch people. They are obsessed with the spirit and break away from the material world. Wolves and tigers are friendly with elks. Living beings do not fight and live in peace. They seem to be free, but in reality, they are sinking. I have the great Tao of freedom, and I can liberate all living beings. The Monkey King kowtowed and said, "Patriarch, how can we save all living beings? We must make all living beings value themselves. Wolves and tigers are greedy, and the officials are cruel. There are many people who are greedy and angry. Like a plate of flowing water, conflicts arise everywhere. Natural selection, competition, enjoyment, desire, and freedom. Everyone is free and will not be restrained by immortals and Buddhas. Then, let it develop naturally and improve continuously. With the goal of the great harmony of the world, immortals and Buddhas can only enlighten and not confuse people forcefully. The spiritual mountain in the West restricts people's desires. It is a great evil. I want to spread the teachings to the Western paradise and promote the Tao of freedom of desire. However, the spiritual mountain is stubborn. The Buddhas are foolish, and the Buddhas in the Great Thunderclap Monastery are numb. They are greedy and superstitious. They are the cancer of the world and the burden of evolution. The Monkey King said, "Master, what do you want?" Chapter 836. Above the heaven courtyard, the great and benevolent Jade Emperor, great heavenly venerable Xian Xiong Gao Di, was sitting in the spirit of Heaven Hall of the Golden Gate Cloud Palace. He was summoning his ministers to discuss the good and evil of the mortal world and the weather of the day. Suddenly, the spirit officer Yi, who came to report, was hit by the purple gas in the lower realm and fell down from the cloud. He asked in surprise, "Why is there purple gas in the mortal world and it's blocking the path of the celestials?" Clairvoyant, clairaudient, go to the southern heavenly gate and take a look. Before the two generals could move, Tai Bai Jinxing came out and reported, "Your Majesty, don't worry, I know about this. This is Lao Jun Taishang from the Tushita Palace of Lihun Heaven outside of the 33 heavens. He reincarnated yesterday to teach the people. His cultivation was perfect, and he went to the west to become a Buddha. When a saint travels, there will be purple gas following him. It can travel for 30,000 miles, which is why it can crash into the heavenly palace." The Jade Emperor said, "I see, but I saw that the purple gas is divided into two, in the shape of a dragon and a tiger, which is strange." He then ordered Clairaudient and Clairaudient to check again. After a while, the two generals reported, "I was ordered to check where Lao Jun went to the west. He has already reached the boundary of the Central Earth Sect's Zahanga Pass. I saw Lao Jun riding on a bull carriage, and there was a young saint traveling side by side with him. He was on the right side of Lao Jun, and the purple gas from the east followed him for 30,000 miles, in the shape of a dragon and a tiger. I just don't know the saint's background." The Jade Emperor was surprised. "Oh, is there such a rare thing? Two saints traveling to the west to teach the people is a good thing for the three realms. Do you know the background of the young saint?" The three great emperors and the four meritorious officials all stuck their ears out. The four heavenly masters looked to their left and right. The five senses emperor and the four great marshals had a blank look on their faces. The 5 stars lords, 6 stars lord, and 6 stars lord looked at each other. The 9 luminaries, 28 constellations, only shook their heads. It was still Tai Bai Jinxing who came out of the ranks and reported, "I've heard of that young saint. To be able to sit on the right side of Lao Jun and dressed as a young man, he must be the incarnation of the immeasurable heavenly Lord for blessings, the immeasurable heavenly Lord for deliverance, the immeasurable heavenly lord for merit, the immeasurable heavenly lord for Guang Fa, the immeasurable heavenly lord for 10 directions, and the immeasurable heavenly lord for Dara? The immeasurable heavenly lord has yet to appear in this world. It must have been the elder lord's descent that alarmed him. His incarnation descended from the heavens and traveled west with him. The Jade Emperor bestowed benevolence and said, "Since you are the master of Beyond Heaven's sect, you have great merit and virtue, so there is nothing to be concerned about." Tai Bai Jinxing wanted to say something more. However, the Jade Emperor lowered his eyes and opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He could only sigh in his heart and return to the ranks of the officials. In Hangu Pass, Shi welcomed the 2 sages into his official residence. Other than dealing with official business, he would listen to the elder lord's lectures day and night. However, he was afraid of Chenong and did not dare to ask for guidance. Other than listening to the 2 sages' Tao discussion, he had never asked Chenong alone. He was the Hanga Pass commander. The elder lord still needed his permission to travel to the west. He asked for guidance in such a manner, but he invited Chenong to stay. Although Lao Dan was suspected of forcing him to stay, he was well-mannered and would greet Chenong in the morning and evening. During this month, Chenong was quite free, so he often taught the Monkey King. He talked to the Monkey King about the emptiness of Buddhism, the wonders of psyche and consciousness, the 3 wonderful truths, the 6 roots, and the 9 consciousnesses, starting from the consciousness. He said that Buddhism has no self outside of the heart, the impermanence of all actions, the non-self of all dharma, and the nirvana of nirvana. He also talked about the wonders of the origin. The 12 causes were the process of the consciousness being born from nothingness. He also talked about the Tao giving birth to 1, 1 giving birth to 2, 2 giving birth to 3, 3 giving birth to all things, and 1 Qi transforming into heaven and earth. He also taught the 3 graves and 5 classics, 8 ropes and 9 hills, Lianshan, Guizhong, and Zhou Yi. When he was free, he also taught the Monkey King how to burn fire, refine pills, make magic tools, and practice Qi. Every day after he closed the door, he taught the natural philosophy that dominated all the sciences. The monkey was very jumpy, so it was the most painful when he was teaching mathematics. Chun Ong gave him exercises for him to practice. However, when it came to functional equations, the Monkey King was in so much pain that he wanted to die. When it came to algebraic geometry, the Monkey King almost played truant. One day, the Monkey King returned from herding cows outside the pass. Suddenly, he was spotted by Chun Ong and was summoned to him. He asked, "Monkey King, take out the homework that I left for you yesterday." The Monkey King stammered, "Master, this disciple did not finish his homework last night. Today, when I was herding the cows, I was so tired that I fell asleep on the back of the cow." Suddenly, a gust of wind blew and disciple's homework was blown away. Chun Ong laughed coldly and counted with his fingers. Not long after, he opened his eyes and glanced at the Monkey King. "I already know who that wind is." The Hanga Pass has always been an important pass since ancient times. Qin Zu was the emperor of the Zhou dynasty, and before he became a strong country, the warhounds invaded the central plains many times. But they were all defeated at the Hangu Pass, and their bones fell into the valley, causing poisonous bugs to breed. There is a millipede below the pass. It is nourished by the rotting flesh of the dead, and after a long time, it became a demon. It calls itself the Millipede General, and every day it would stir up a gust of wind and travel between the Great Mountain Pass and the Hanga Pass, looking for people to kill and eat. The wind that you saw when you were herding the cows today was caused by him, and he wants to confuse the eyes of the passing merchants, causing them to lose their footing and fall into the valley. Chenong only waited for dusk before he stood up and went to the top of the Hanga Pass to observe the scenery outside. After a short while, a gust of demonic wind blew towards the Hanga Pass. Chun Ong opened his hand and activated his Yuan Qi between his fingers, causing the Yuan Qi to transform into a ray of light. A red ray of light that was as thin as a finger flashed through the demonic wind, and a millipede that was as thick as a person's arms fell from the sky. The Monkey King, who was at the side, took a closer look and saw that the millipede had been split in half from head to toe. Its limbs were still moving, but it was already dead. Chenong raised his hand and pulled a yellow book over from the demonic wind. He opened it and saw that there was not a single word on it. He then laughed coldly and ordered the Monkey King to roll over. The monkey was trembling and was at a loss of what to do. He knelt in front of Chenong and said, "Master, Master, I was wrong. I was wrong. Please forgive me, forgive me." Chenong only said, "Since you don't want to learn, then forget it. You're already fully fledged and have learned many supernatural powers and spells. What I will teach you next will be limit, calculus, space analytic geometry, linear algebra, series, ordinary differential equations. If you don't understand these, you won't be able to learn fluid mechanics, advanced physics, space physics, high-energy physics, quantum physics, and advanced chemistry. This is all I can teach you. You can go now." After saying that, he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. The Monkey King hurriedly hugged his legs and said with tears in his eyes, "Master, where do you want me to go?" His voice was like the cry of an ape, choking with sobs. The green ox also came over and bit Chun-Ang's sleeve, nodding his head to plead for mercy. Chenong only said, "Cultivating what I have learned. Those who don't understand mathematics are like making porcelain but can't overheat it. It looks good, but it's actually just an embryo. Your monkey's personality is erratic, and it's hard for you to become a great person. When you worshipped me, you only wanted to learn the art of immortality. Even if you cultivate this mathematics, you won't be able to live forever. Now that you have obtained immortality, what's the use of keeping you alive? Go, don't bother me." The Monkey King only kowtowed. "I was wrong. Patriarch, I was wrong." Chapter 837. On the other hand, Ishi received a message from his subordinates and went up to take a look. He saw a millipede that was tens of feet long and had been split in half from head to tail. It lay limply on the ground outside Hangapass. He hurriedly ordered people to carry it in. When he got closer, he smelled a fishy odor and realized that the demon's body was poisonous. Although millipedes were non-poisonous insects, they had eaten a lot of human flesh in the deep valleys and carried corpse poison on their bodies. Ishi ordered people to carry the demon's body away and burn it. He said to his subordinates, "I've known about this 1,000-legged demon's mischief in the past. It used its demonic wind to blow passing merchants into the valleys to feed on it. However, this demon was very powerful, and I couldn't do anything to it. I pretended not to know. Unexpectedly, it offended the saints and was killed. The 2 saints in this residence are my honored guests. You must treat them with care. If you dare to neglect them, I have my ways to deal with them." His subordinates solemnly replied. Ishi was about to go back and pay his respects to Laozi when he saw the Monkey King kneeling outside Chun-Ang's room in a daze. He had asked his subordinates and found out some things. However, this was an internal matter of the saints. How could he interfere? He didn't make a sound and greeted Laozi outside the door. After receiving permission, he entered the house. When the saint of Tao Virtue saw him, he said to him, "I'm going west and won't be able to stay in Hangapass for long. I called you in because I want to bid farewell and leave. Do you agree?" Ishi kowtowed. "How can I question the saint when he's going out? Please come with me. I will resign and leave with the saint." He then asked the saint about his trip to the west. Laozi mentioned the matter of becoming a Hu. Ishi pleaded, "Why did the saint teach the Hu people and forget about Yin Huang? I have listened to your teachings for several months and know that you are a virtuous and knowledgeable person. Yin Huang has been taught by the saints since ancient times, such as Beichun, which is why there are so many outstanding people in civilization. Now that the saint is going west, I dare not disobey. Please leave behind a book to teach the future generations." Laozi pondered for a moment before smiling. "It's a meaningless matter. Why should I force it? Fine, fine. I will give you 5,000 words that will be handed down from generation to generation. The meaning of morality." Ishi did not dare to be negligent. He called for someone to bring him a bamboo slip with a knife and a brush. Then he sat down and engraved Laozi's words on the bamboo slip. Laozi's words were the epitome of Taoism, and Ishi carved them down. It was 3 in the morning. The Monkey King was kneeling outside the door, while the green ox was leading the herd behind the house. Both of them could hear Laozi's words. They were so intoxicated that they did not realize that the sky was bright, but they were not sleepy at all. Chenong pushed the door open and saw the Monkey King still kneeling outside. "What are you still kneeling for? Heaven and earth are free and unfettered. The world is vast. You can go wherever you want." As he spoke, he wanted to close the door. Monkey King only kowtowed and said, "Master, please listen to me." Chenong only looked at him. The Monkey King cried and said, "I've already redone my homework. I'm already regretful for deceiving Master that day. I can't wait to get back to that day and kill those distracting thoughts with a stick. I was originally a natural stone monkey without any parents. I was born and raised by the heaven and earth. I mingled with the other monkeys and was unbearably rough. Fortunately, Master created me. He did not despise me for being stubborn and slow-witted. He taught me the path of Taoism and understood the truth. When I was apprenticed to Master, I only had the thought of immortality. However, after hearing Master's teachings and understanding of the truth, I have the heart to pursue Taoism. If Master chased me away, I really don't know what to do next. It's like I'm stuck in the mud. Patriarch, please have mercy on me and spare me this time. Come with me." Chenong brought the Monkey King to see Lao Dan. He bowed to Lao Dan and said, "Please help me, immortal Tai Ching." He then turned to the Monkey King and said, "You're originally a spiritual creature created by the heaven and earth. The heaven and earth gave birth to you, but did not teach you. After witnessing the death of the old ape in the mountain, you realized the great horror between life and death. You have the heart to pursue Taoism and immortality. This is your natural Tao nature. Now, your wish has been fulfilled. However, you have to know that achieving immortality is just a small matter. The stubborn stone in a mountain can live for thousands of years. It was born from the creation of the heaven and earth. It has the same lifespan as the heaven and earth. However, it is also immortal and will not be affected by life and death. Before you transformed, you were already a celestial stone. Why are you asking for it?" The Monkey King said, "I was a stubborn stone when I was alive. I didn't have 7 orifices. Although I have some spiritual energy, I'm still a dead thing. How can I be compared to you? You also know that you can't be compared to me." Chenong asked, "Now that you've obtained some Tao Qi, you're complacent and think that you can live forever. You're lazy in pursuing the Tao, and you're not diligent in learning. You've only learned from me for 3 months, and you think that you've obtained the Tao. In our eyes, what difference are you from a dead thing? If you only want to live a long life and then mix with beasts and indulge in the pleasures of beasts, you're just an immortal monkey. Isn't an immortal monkey a monkey? Monkey King, perfected Tai Ching gave you a surname. I didn't name you because I wanted you to be a macaque again. However, I knew that with such a name, you would be able to transcend your race and see your true self. After getting a name, you're no longer just a stone monkey, not just a macaque, not just that Monkey King, but a unique Monkey King with a name. I have to see myself clearly. I have to know where I came from, what I am, and where I'm going. Breaking a stubborn stone to see the Monkey King. Isn't this world another stubborn stone? You're not willing to learn from me, saying that you have a jumpy personality and can't stand being restrained. However, in my opinion, aren't you lazy? The thought of longevity is not the thought of the Tao. Cultivating the Tao is not to train yourself to become a 1,000-year-old tortoise or a stubborn stone that lives as long as the heavens. Instead, you have a will to move forward and continuously evolve. Listen to me when I talk about natural selection, survival of the fittest, and the development of humanity. Don't you understand the principle of constantly striving to improve and advance? Gods and Buddhas advise people to do good. Could it be that their nature is bad? Why do I say that it's rotten? It's because it doesn't seek development and doesn't persuade people to move forward. Instead, it tells people to stop, endure, and not change. It wants to enjoy bliss after death. Good and evil will be repaid. As a result, everyone only seeks bliss. They can't see what's in front of them and don't work hard to move forward. The Monkey King was shocked. Chun-Ong transformed the void and casually opened up a chaos. A spot of formless chaos floated in front of Chun-Ong and was fixed by Chun-Ong. The perfected Tai Ching smiled and said, "So you want to imitate my creation of the world?" He slashed with his hand and separated the chaos that Chun-Ong had fixed. Since there was yin and yang, the clear and turbid qi intertwined. Originally, the clear qi should have floated up, and the turbid qi would have descended to separate the world. However, Chun-Ong only closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, a thought had already swallowed the world. The thought was born from ignorance, and it gave birth to Brahma, and it gave birth to knowledge. From knowledge, it gave birth to names and colors. At that moment, the world had already been divided. The various mental activities of the thought were like thinking, and, if not thinking, it was the colorless realm. When it saw the appearance, it gave birth to the colorless realm. Finally, the 6 senses of the eyes, ears, mouth, and nose were born, and the desire realm was born. It sounded complicated, but it was actually simple. It was just a dream that Chun-Ang's thoughts had. The thoughts in the dream turned into the world that Laozi had opened up. From ignorance, there would be mental activities. Movement was action, and mental activities gave birth to consciousness. Consciousness would then recognize names and colors, which were all kinds of colors. When consciousness felt colors, it was divided into 3 levels. Without the feeling of colors, all mental activities were empty and were born as the colorless realm. All consciousness felt the concept of matter. When consciousness felt everything on matter, it was the appearance of color. This was the color realm, which included specific feelings and various concepts. The feeling of specific senses, namely the senses of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, was the desire realm. When Chun-Ong opened his eyes again, the chaos had already turned into a complete universe. It only existed in Chun-Ang's dream. Chun-Ong waved his hand casually, and the Monkey King was unable to stand still. He fell head first into the world of Chun-Ang's dream. The creation of this world was opened by Chun-Ang's understanding of the Dharma. The impermanence of all actions and the anatta of all dharmas were the first foundation. The impermanence of all actions meant that everything in the world would change in an instant. This was similar to the materialism, where everything was moving and changing. Chun-Ong comprehended it without any hindrance. However, the second seal, the anatta of all dharmas, was the most fundamental difference between idealism and materialism. The first difference was whether humans could understand the world. Chun-Ang's worldview believed that humans could study and understand the world. This was the theory of knowability. However, Buddhism believed that there was no other self apart from the self. Apart from the self, there was no other self. Apart from the self, there was no other self. Apart from the self, there was no other self. Apart from the self, there was no other self. Only the self, which was the consciousness itself, could be understood. The so-called cultivation was the process of understanding the self. From knowing oneself, Buddha discovered the emptiness beyond the form, but he also discovered that apart from the self, all other substances and even life could not be recognized. Their consciousness could never be known, and they could never obtain things beyond the form. In other words, one could only be sure of the reality of one's own consciousness, but could not be sure and recognize the consciousness of others. It was like a brain in a vat, a world in a dream. Since apart from the self, everything was form, and the emptiness was in the self, then it could be determined that the world was in the self. As long as the self could perceive the world would exist. If the self could not perceive the world, then the world would not exist. Everything was just idealism. Everything in the world was not moved by the wind, nor was it moved by the banner, but by the heart. The self moved. Since the world was in the self, then there was another question. Where did the self come from? This was the origin. The Buddha believed that the self came from the Namo, and the Namo gave birth to action, which was the spiritual activity. The action gave birth to knowledge, which was the consciousness. Through the consciousness, one would know the form of the world and learn about the cause and effect behind the form, which was the Tao, the emptiness and the rebirth of all material attributes, which were the form and the form. Finally, the specific feeling of the various senses would be realized, which was the realm of desire. Therefore, there was all touch, which was all the contact between the consciousness and the outside world. Then there was the feeling of touch, which was the emotional reaction to touch. From a feeling of touch came love. Love was desire and greed. Love came to take, and then the desire drove people's behavior and pursuit. From taking came to have. The behavior and pursuit produced cause, and from cause came to effect. In the end, death destroyed everything. This process was the origin of everything. From Chunang's point of view, it was the process of the birth of consciousness and the understanding of the world. If consciousness was seen as the only reality, then it was the process of the birth of consciousness and the creation of the world. Chun-Ong created the world with the origin. The thought-swallowing Lao Jun opened up the two Qis, which was because there was no self outside the heart, and everything was only the heart. The clear and turbid Qis opened up by the Lao Jun naturally did not exist, but were perceived by Chun-Ang's thoughts. Then there was the Namo, which gave birth to knowledge. Knowledge gave birth to name, and name gave birth to 6 roots. The 6 roots gave birth to touch. Touch gave birth to feeling. Feeling gave birth to love. Love gave birth to taking. Taking gave birth to existence. Existence gave birth to life, and then death. This was the reincarnation of a world. Brahma created the world with a dream, and that was it. To the Monkey King at this moment, wasn't Chunong Brahma? In Chun-Ang's dream, all his feelings were formed by the desire realm. All matter was color, and the great Tao was just a colorless sky. Emptiness was not different from color, and color was not different from the emptiness of emptiness. Everything, feelings, material attributes, and even the invisible laws behind everything were formed by Chun-Ang's consciousness. The more subtle action and ignorance were things that only Chun-Ong could sense. The Monkey King seemed to have been reduced by Chun-Ong and was trapped in the color. It was like a brain in a jar, a world of information. On the other hand, Chun-Ong used this opportunity to discuss the Tao with the Grand Pure One. He used a world as a chessboard and used each other's hands to verify the Tao path. The two of them worked together to evolve the world and verify what they had learned. However, when the saints discussed the Tao, they often used a world as a chess piece. To the living beings of that world, it was unbelievable. As for the training of the Monkey King, it made him understand that longevity was separated from transcendence. The heart to move forward was just a stubborn stone, but it was just incidental. The two of them wanted to transform into Buddha. Chun-Ong used the Buddhist Dharma that he had comprehended to open up a world and asked the Grand Pure One about the Buddhist Dharma that he had comprehended. At the same time, in this world, Chun-Ong evolved the universe, stars, galaxies, and galaxies. With a single thought, he turned the universe into a physical universe, using atoms as the foundation. At the same time, he threw Wukong onto a planet that focused on technology. He first abused it with all kinds of technology, then sealed its 6 senses and reincarnated in this universe again, turning it into a student, reading until he died, and solving problems until he died. Only after 5 to 6 reincarnations did he let it go. The Grand Pure One shook his head and smiled. Heavenly Venerable, why are you making things difficult for your disciple? It's a joke. Chapter 838. Chun-Ang's dream world and Taoist Tai Ching's place only took a moment, but the dream world had already opened up for a period of time. The dream world had all sorts of strange things that could not be described in a single sentence. The two sages seemed to be quietly observing the world, but in fact they were evolving the Hinayana Buddhism. In the Hinayana Buddhism, only I was supreme. What form of self-nature was originally pure? What form of self-nature was originally undying? What form of self-nature was originally sufficient? What form of self-nature was originally unshakable? What form of self-nature was able to give birth to all kinds of dharma? Chunang's thought transformed heaven and earth. But in fact, after the origin of ignorance, 3,000 troubles were born, and the appearance of emptiness was born. This world went through all kinds of tribulations, such as creation, rebirth, destruction, and emptiness. After 1296 million years, it suddenly disappeared. The Monkey King had reincarnated 9 times and witnessed the collapse of Chunang's galaxy, the collapse of neutron stars, the extinction of stars, the eruption of black holes, and the ignition of stars. He was even sent into a reincarnated planet similar to Earth by Chunang and was reborn as a student. He went through all kinds of examinations and studied tirelessly. After receiving such lessons, he saw the destruction of the universe and the suffering of sentient beings. He saw some strange beings in the galaxy who could live forever, encountering the collapse of the world. A plasma being hatched from a planet had a lifespan that was even longer than the Monkey King. However, when the universe collapsed, the emptiness was no longer there. In the great tear of the galaxy, countless planets disintegrated. Even though the living beings were born with great supernatural powers, they had no choice but to turn into ashes. There were also beings that existed independently and transcended the material world. They were like divinity, pure spiritual beings with infinite wisdom. They could discover all Dharma in an instant. In the heat death, entropy increased immeasurably, and negative entropy was worn down into the sea of heat. All kinds of unimaginable immortals perished in the universe. Among them, great horror, great disaster, and great destruction were extremely terrifying. The Monkey King could see it and knew that the immeasurable heavenly Lord was also terrifying. The destruction was boundless, the calamity was boundless, and the suffering was boundless. The Lord of infinite Maha was merciful, but he was also merciless. Then, the world of desire collapsed. The 6 senses of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind were destroyed. The 6 senses of the Monkey King were destroyed. His eyes could no longer see color, ears could no longer hear sound waves, and light were all meaningless. The attributes of matter and color collapsed, and there were no longer length, width, and space attributes. The shape collapsed, and the concept of mass disappeared. The concepts of color and color became meaningless when the 6 senses were destroyed. In the end, the universe had no words, no thoughts, and no names. 3 of the 4 dhyana heavens in the world of color fell, and only consciousness existed alone. The attributes of matter and the world of color had been destroyed, leaving only the various connections behind the attributes of matter in the world. That was the existence of emptiness. It was the 4 tribulations of success, destruction, and emptiness. The universe was also destroyed. The perfected Tai Ching and Chun-Ong worked together to evolve the life and death of the world with one thought. They confirmed all kinds of Buddhist Dharma. The Monkey King was immersed in it and could only obtain one of them. For the perfected Tai Ching and Chun-Ong, they could only comprehend each other's wisdom and Buddhist Dharma. Hence, they looked at each other and smiled. The perfected Tai Ching stretched out his hand and plucked the world formed by Chunang's thoughts. He shook it, and the Monkey King rolled out of the world. The Monkey King felt that the memories of the Yuan Hui in that world were empty. It was because after the world formed by Chunang's thoughts was destroyed, the appearance in his memories had transcended. The memories of more than 120,000 years had lost the attributes of matter and were in chaos. The Monkey King was still far from the realm of Chunang's Grand Pure One. How could he distinguish it? Only when he comprehended the appearance could all kinds of emptiness exist. However, he could not explain it clearly. The Monkey King bowed and said, "Ancestral Master, I've comprehended. Everything in the world has its end. Everything is impermanent. How can there be permanence in the world? That old man Gautama, the Jade Emperor, can't even be around. If he is, wouldn't Gautama be lying to himself? I know that the 2 of them will definitely be destroyed. Even the immortals and Buddhas can't be around forever. The immortality that the immortals and Buddhas mentioned is just a joke. In the eyes of the two ancestral masters, the longevity that the immortals and Buddhas mentioned is just a peanut being destroyed. When the ancestral master saw that I was immersed in the joy of longevity, he used this to enlighten me. Success, past, bad, and emptiness are the principles of the world. If I give up when I obtain longevity, I won't turn bad and become nothing in the end. If the immortals and Buddhas don't move and don't change, they will reach the end of the past and can't go up anymore. They can only go down and look free. In fact, they're just waiting for death. You monkey, why are you talking about Zen in front of me and fellow Taoist Tai Ching? Chun-Ong smiled and said, could it be that you want to fire me as your master and go back to Gautama? The Monkey King changed his words and said, Ancestral Master, disciple has already comprehended that longevity isn't the end of the path of Tao. If you don't go, you will be bad. When Yang ends, Yin will be born. If you don't change, you will die. I'm only willing to learn sincerely and chase after the great Tao. I won't be a monkey that stops to enjoy life. That's great. Chun-Ong caressed the Monkey King's head and said, I only hope that you will continue to learn and improve. Don't let down the name that I've given you. Don't break a stubborn stone. Don't be a Monkey King. You must know that although emptiness exists, you can't comprehend it. If you don't comprehend it, you can only improve. If you comprehend it, you will have nowhere to go and can only be destroyed. The pursuit of Tao is endless. If you don't move forward, you will fall behind. The Monkey King then greeted Lao Dan and performed a half-disciple's greeting. Lao Dan nodded and smiled. He pointed his right hand in the air and said, Chun Daoyu was born without a name. His thoughts gave birth to the world and evolved into Brahma. He talked about Hinayana Buddhism with me. However, apart from Hinayana Buddhism, there is also Mahayana Buddhism, which has its own style. I'm going to talk about it with Chun Daoyu. The Monkey King suddenly had an idea. He pleaded, Ancestral Master, the Green Bull also did some hard work to carry the carriage. Can you come and listen to it? The Saint of Dao smiled and said, It's all right. The Monkey King then ran out and called out to the Green Bull, Brother, don't tell me that I've forgotten about you. I've asked for a favor from the two ancestral masters. I'll allow you to go in and listen to the talk. You don't have to listen at the back of the house anymore. The Green Bull turned his head and transformed into a burly man. He said, I'm indebted to you, brother. I made a lot of contributions under my master. Now, I can enter the house. Suddenly, he said, You don't have to hurry. Go and invite that official here. He's my master's disciple. It's not good for me to offend him. If I let him go this time, I'm afraid that it won't look good when we meet in the future. The Monkey King scratched his head and asked, The two ancestral masters only allowed you to go in and listen to the talk. They didn't mention anyone else. This is putting me in a difficult position. The burly man that the Green Bull transformed into said, You don't have any face in front of my master. If I go and invite him, he won't be in a difficult position. However, if I go and invite him, he won't be able to recognize me. However, after pondering for a while, the Green Bull said, There's no need to invite him. He's a person with cultivation. He's already here. Chapter 839. When the saint started his lecture, the atmosphere was extraordinary and all the deities heard about it. There was a day when the night-wandering deity leaked the news and the two celestial generals, Qin Li Yin and Jinfeng Air, secretly told him that in the guest house at Hanga Pass, ordinary people could only see that the door was tightly shut and there was no one around. However, with the discerning eyes of the saint, he could see celestial light everywhere, auspicious clouds gathering, and all kinds of wonderful phenomena. It was unbelievable. About 10 immortals hovered in the sky, while the 6 guards and 6 armored generals stood at the 4 corners of the guest house, guarding the door, while the 4 merit officers guarded the windows. The vigorous Ghost King of the Heavenly Palace came late and saw that the 4 immortals had surrounded the small guest house. He slapped his thigh and shouted, That god of night is so ignorant. I gave him 10 years of incense just to let me know when the saint is creating scriptures so that I can take advantage of it. How dare he trick me? He then scolded, Old Lord, descending to the world and becoming a saint is such a great job. These 6 generals are greedy for merit and did not get the imperial edict. They used the excuse of protecting the saint. Who doesn't know that old Lord Lee's green bull is brave and would not hesitate to kill 100 of them? Why would he need them to protect him? He also scolded the 4th duty meritorious official for being lazy when he was performing his duties, using his position as an excuse to get some benefits. But it came quickly. The various immortals in the heavens did not care about their skin. Even those without official duties dared to come and listen to the lecture in secret. As he scolded and scolded, he saw the auspicious clouds in the sky were steady. The divine generals did not move in all 4 directions, pretending not to hear his scolding. Nobody left in shame, giving up their position for him. Before the celestial beings could leave, a thin black dog trotted over and secretly crouched at the bottom of the steps. The vigorous Ghost King looked familiar. Although the 4 immortal generals were only here to listen to the lecture, with them here, which wild animal would dare to come and cause trouble? Even the sounds of insects stopped. Such a big, thin dog, and the 6 generals pretended not to see it. The Ghost King did not know which celestial it was and was envious. Another sparrow flew over and stopped outside the window. The Ghost King did not know what was good for him and blurted out, "Is that Erlang Xiansheng?" As soon as the words left his mouth, he knew something was wrong. Sure enough, the faces of the 6 deities changed. The 4 deities hid themselves. The chickadee only turned back to look at him, but made the vigorous Ghost King sweat profusely. His legs trembled. The vigorous Ghost King thought that the 4 deities' generals would react, but they pretended not to hear him. The Ghost King secretly cursed. What a cunning deity general! The Herculean Ghost King knew that he had offended true Lord Xiansheng and was reluctant to leave. He could only turn into the size of a bug and sneak under the door. In the guest house, the old turtle held the world of Chun Ang's dream in his hand. It was as small as a mustard seed. The sage pondered for a moment and pointed his left hand in the void. Jade light turned into a circle and formed a 3-foot square pond. The mustard seed world was infinitely small and vast. It fell in the middle of the water mirror square pond, but it took root and sprouted. It even formed a few trembling flower buds. In an instant, it grew into a jade-like, cute lianhua. This scene did not scare the Monkey King and Yi Shi, but the 4 deities' generals were dumbfounded. The Monkey King had not cultivated for a long time and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if the Tai Ching Zhenren opened up a world in front of him, he might not be scared. Didn't Chenong and the Tai Ching Zhenren work together to do that just now? However, he was ignorant of common sense, so he was not surprised. The 4 deities' generals were knowledgeable and could see that the wind, earth, water, and fire in the world controlled by the Tai Ching Zhenren were all destroyed and planted the lianhua. The lianhua was real, so was the world. The lianhua had 2 forms. One was the real lianhua, and the other was a pure land of ultimate bliss hidden in the flower bud. There were 3,000 Buddhas, 800 arhats, and even a Gautama Buddha sitting in the center of the lianhua. The Buddha of Spirited Mountain in West Heaven was preaching about the Dharma assembly when he paused and stopped. He looked up and saw that the pure land of ultimate bliss was like a lianhua that had not bloomed. His gaze passed through the lianhua and looked at the 2 boundless Tai Ching Zhenren and Chun Ong outside the pure land of ultimate bliss. He smiled. The bodhisattvas were shocked when they saw the Buddha holding the flower and smiling. The golden Brahma flower bloomed brilliantly. The Buddhas who were listening were all silent. Only Kasyapa broke into a smile. In the guest house, Chenong said, "In the lianhua," Sakya smiled while holding the flower. The Buddhas didn't understand what he meant. Only Kasyapa understood and comprehended our Mahayana Dharma. "I wonder what you all have comprehended?" The Monkey King said, "Just now, the patriarch gave birth to the world with a thought. Now that the old Lord turned the world into lianhua with a thought, he saw that the 5 skandhas are all empty. The patriarch created the world through karma. All dharmas are caused by karma, and all phenomena depend on the conditions of me. I have something, so this exists. I am born, so this exists. I have no cause, so this doesn't exist. I am the cause, and all dharmas exist because of me. I don't wait for karma, and I'm an independent existence. All dharmas are empty, and only I am self-nature. Therefore, form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. The same goes for perception, action, and consciousness. The Monkey King's words were complicated, but the celestials could understand it. The emptiness, he said, was the emptiness, or the emptiness of self-nature. He meant that Chun Ang's karma created the world, and everything in the world was created by Chun Ang's consciousness. The existence of idealism couldn't be separated from the relationship and conditions of Chun Ang's idealism. In other words, if Chun Ang couldn't feel it, everything wouldn't exist. Therefore, all physical attributes, form, all kinds of feelings, perception, from the six senses, all kinds of cognition, thinking, consciousness activity, action, and all kinds of consciousness belong to the emptiness of self-nature. They couldn't be separated from relationships and conditions to exist independently. Chun Ang shook his head and said, "This is Hinayana Dharma. There is no self outside the heart, and everything comes from the origin of ignorance. This is not the Mahayana Dharma that I want to talk about. Let me ask you, is the world of spirited mountain and the flower real or fake?" The Monkey King mustered up his courage and said, "I came from the countryside, and even if I don't know much, I know that the world of spirited mountain is far away in the western land of ultimate bliss. How could it be in the flower of Grandmaster? Of course it's fake. Is that so?" Chun Ang pushed the Monkey King into the Lianhua. The Monkey King felt his body lightened, and he fell into an extremely vast world. He fell from the sky and saw countless rays of Buddha from afar. There was a big Buddha sitting on the lotus platform. When the Monkey King saw the Buddha, he screamed in shock. He knew without asking himself that this was the Buddha of Spirited Mountain in the west, Rilai. Rilai opened his palm and took it. The Monkey King made a monkey head and squeaked. Suddenly, one of the Buddhas understood. When Buddha held a flower and smiled at Maha Kasyapa, there was a deep meaning behind it. Now that he was holding a monkey, what was the meaning behind it? Thus, the 3,000 Buddhas and 800 Arhats lowered their heads and pondered. A tiger subduing Arhat called out, "Subdue the inner monkey, rein in the horse." The revered one the world is telling me to hold the inner monkey in my hand. Thus he sat upright and comprehended the profound meaning. Another long-eared Dingwang Buddha thought. Buddha held a flower and smiled at Maha Kasyapa. Now that he is holding a monkey, why don't I do it? He imitated the monkey head and squeaked. The revered one of the world held the Monkey King in his hand and said to the Buddhas, "The old Lord is on a journey to the west and is now discussing Tao with the sages at Hanga Pass. They're just joking with me." He then tossed the Monkey King back and said, "Tiger subduing, Dingwang does not understand the Dharma and is making trouble without understanding. Your cultivation is not fixed, and your cultivation is regressing." In front of Rilai, the second disciple, Golden Cicada, was extremely intelligent and knew the cause and effect of the cause and effect. Seeing that the Buddha was trying to hide it, he was sly and covered his mouth and laughed. Rilai's Dharma, I saw clearly and said, "Golden Cicada, why are you smiling?" Golden Cicada was flustered and said, "Just now, the revered one of the world was picking flowers. I was born slow, and only now did I understand the correct method. That's why I laughed. Thou hast not heard of the Dharma, and have made light of my great sect, and laughed contemptuously in the hall. There is also the long-eared Dingwang Buddha, and your mouth speaks the words of a beast, the tiger subduing Arhat, and you do not understand my meaning. Therefore, I demote the three of you to reincarnate into the Eastern land." Tiger subduing Buddha reincarnated 3 times. Tiger subduing light reincarnated 6 times, and the Golden Cicada. Thou hast reincarnated 10 times, and without great merit, thou shalt not return. Rilai passed down the decree, and naturally, Dharma Protector Jalan dragged 3 people to carry out the decree. As for the Monkey King, After he was thrown out from the Lianhua, a look of horror appeared on his face as he exclaimed, "It's true. It was true." So that patriarch would know that when I fell into the spiritual mountain within the flowers and was pinched in Rulai's hand, I saw everything clearly. That world within the flowers was the pure land of ultimate bliss, and the Rulai, sitting in the center, was also Rulai. In this Lianhua, there is a pure land of ultimate bliss hidden. Hearing what the Monkey King said, shock appeared on the face of the green bull burly man. She didn't understand, and Lu Ding, Lu Jia, and the 4 merit officers were even more shaken. The 5 directions Ding Ting, who were pressing down on the roof, all shouted, "Impossible!